what this represents?
Tell us, sir.
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary.
Hillary's belief that it takes a village, which only makes sense, after all, in places like Haiti, where she's taken a number of them.
The country will see the United States will see the first gay president or the first woman president.
We already have it with Obama, so let's just calm down.
Got it.
You know Michelle is a trend.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. An order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning. Because today, we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
So I have a lot of enemies out there. This may be the last time you'll see me for a while. A lot of very, very rich enemies, but they are not happy with what I'm doing. But I figure we have one chance to do it, and no other president's going to do what I do.
And until they release the flight logs, you, the mainstream media, Hollywood, are all pedophiles to me.
How's it going, everybody? FCB here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing fantastic. And I hope you're all in amazing spirits. And welcome to the Decoders Den. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I brought it back. I brought it back from the depths. Don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to be doing a lot more of the Decoders Den. The next one is going to be called Pharmakia. And there's going to be a lot more Decoders Den coming your way. Don't you worry. It's coming back, and it's coming back for good. Now, today's decode is basically this, ladies and gentlemen. The Great Military Decode. Very, very important. One thing about the Decoders Den, it's about topics. It's staying on topic, staying on point. And remember, it's very fitting after all, since we're basically in Red October. Yes, Red October. And by the way, yes. What happens to be today? It happens to be 17 Day, doesn't it? Yes, let me remind you, there are no coincidences, none whatsoever. Today marks on the 2023, remember that little thing with the Hamza, with the little air, you know, the, what do you call it? They come down with the gliders and they did that whole thing. Remember that whole thing? Yeah, yes. That happened in, it was it 3 years ago? 2 years ago? It was 2023, I think. So it was 2 years ago, wasn't it? 2 years. Yes, 2 years ago. And happy 17 Day, ladies and gentlemen. 17 October equals 10. 7th day, 10 plus 7, 17 equals Q. There are no coincidences. None whatsoever. Yes, the paragliding business. Thank you, Soren. Well, they went down, remember that? And I did that whole video. It was so funny, wasn't it? We had a good old chuckle. Yes, I agree. It was the gliders of bullshit. Now, what are we seeing right now? We're in Red October. That's the first day of the shutdown. Very interesting words, choice of words, shutdown. Let's see what happens with that. Now, what are we seeing is this escalation. So, for example, President Trump has said about sending the Tomahawk missiles. Now, these Tomahawk missiles happen to have a range of 1,500 miles. 15, Q-drop 15, 11.3, very fitting. 1,500 miles. So think about it from this perspective. Putin is saying, well, hold on a minute, our nuclear doctrine has changed, which it has. So basically, they revised the nuclear doctrine, which allows anyone, so for example, any threat to do with a threat against their territorial integrity or sovereignty, whether it's ballistic, whether it's nuclear, it allows the release of nuclear weapons and allows Russia to use it. Now think about it from this perspective. How would you like the bully on your doorstep? How would you like if you had missiles, Tomahawk missiles, facing towards you and blowing up your capital cities? How would you appreciate that? You wouldn't, would you? Now, obviously, Putin has said this. Hey, you do that, our relationship is finished. You're crossing red lines, hence, Red October. Yeah, we know what that means. Red lines. Okay? And you think about this. Those Tomahawk missiles are made in the United States. They are programmable. The thing is, they're useless if they're not. So who are the ones that can program these things? What satellites do you need to have access to? Because these missiles uses a satellite to be able to guide them directly to their target. So they have the long range capability. Putin said the only way that is going to happen is if the United States directly, basically using the United States staff, military, to program these missiles using their infrastructure, their satellites, to go and target Moscow, for example, which would basically would be a direct conflict between the United States and Russia. Yes, the sum of all fears, just like the hunt is on for Red October. Now, think about it from this perspective. Putin's well within his rights, but remember, this is a scare necessary event we've been all waiting for. Let me lay it down. Q drop 521. Not everything will be clean. Scare necessary event. Do you trust the US military? Do you trust the chain of command? We are in control. Have faith. You were chosen for a reason. Yeah, we're chosen for a reason because, number one, what do? With this information, we're able to ground ourselves with what's factual, what's going on. Now think about this. Without these Q drops, ladies and gentlemen, you'd be driving like in the dark. You wouldn't know where you're going. And the Q drops are done by design also, so that we can have a few Q proofs, as in date, date sensitive. So we know that, for example, that certain Q drops have, basically lined up with deltas on certain dates for a reason, and that is to give us, obviously, proof. But then also future proofs past gives us proof as well as to events that are happening right now. And we can go to the Q drops and say, well, hold on a minute. These were posted in the past. Future proofs past. So we need this to happen. We want this to happen. We know that the military are involved because the only way has been the military. Let's be honest. The three-letter agencies, the governments of the world, the leaders are puppets. They are degenerates. They are corruptible. Look at Obama, for example. Obama was groomed by Prince Al-Walid of Saudi Arabia. Triple plus, the House of Sword. Groomed. Profiled for the role. Even all these other leaders, ladies and gentlemen, they've got to be corruptible. That's why they have also these honeypot operations. Epstein Island, Playboy Mansion, and many others. So they have the goods on them. So they can blackmail them. The only way has been the military, because President Trump, as the commander-in-chief, has direct control over them. They have sworn an oath to the Constitution, and they must uphold their oath. Now think about it from this perspective. People will say, oh yes, but so was Clinton a commander-in-chief. Yes, they were. So was Obama. But the thing is, when you can corrupt the person, they're not going to utilize their powers for the benefit of America or for mankind. Have a look at Obama. Obama was put in place for 8 years. And his purpose was to weaken the military. In many ways, shapes and forms. We're going to go through this. Commander-in-Chief Trump has given us many comps. We're going to go through the comps together. Now, all this is happening right now for a reason. Remember, let's go to Q drop 1081. 10 plus 8 plus 1, we get 19. Now, Putin is Russia's president. His job is to look after Russia's people. Put yourself in his shoes. He wants to win. Why not take advantage of his enemies? Trump comes along, Russia and Putin become allies. Xi becomes allies as well. Remember, when President Trump went to China, he went and dined in the Forbidden City. That has never, ever, ever happened before. Xi and Putin are also under attack by the deep state. In fact, Putin also exposed the New World Order. So what we must realize is this, that these people like Putin and Xi and all the rest of them that are working together with President Trump are taking down the New World Order. This is the thing, the crux of it all has been done. But this is, when you've taken over and you cut the head off the Leviathan, let's just call it the cabal. Then you've got all the tentacles to deal with afterwards, haven't you? Because that's what they are, tentacles, all around the world. So then you've left with the damaged goods, mankind, humanity. The damage has been done. So people have been indoctrinated, and they will defend the very system that enslaved them. Then you've got to deal with that. Now think about the gravity of this, ladies and gentlemen. Think about the significance. Think about what that man has on his shoulders. So you can go around and cut the heads off the cabal. Then you can go after the major players in the deep state. But then you've got those ones that are deep rooted as well. And then also, remember, you've got to do something. Think about the significance, the importance of this plan. That's why I'm saying people really got to get why this plan has taken 8 years. Now, World War II took over 6 years. And that was evil funding both sides of the coin, just like World War I. We're talking about the real, not the illusion of good versus evil. Remember, that's how they've been playing us. They've been creating the heroes and the villains. Now, this is the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. This is the real deal. This is the real good versus evil that's taking place. Not the illusion. So you think about what's on that man's shoulders right there. Let's get into that attitude of gratitude on our commander-in-chief, what he's been up to. Do you think he doesn't want this all done and dusted? Do you think he doesn't want it all finished? He does. But it's got to be done in a certain way, organically. where the masses have got to be awoken and demand that these entities be locked up. And that's why you got all these drip, 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 drip. They've been seeding. You got to get it. They seed mass consciousness. And they're taking control over the mainstream media. And they're basically, they're going to destroy mainstream media. I mean, you've been seeing mainstream media's credibility has been decimated. And they've been dripping in various means, seeding mass consciousness, using the very means that were created by the deep state, like Netflix. They've been using and putting certain things in there, certain TV series, movies, stuff like that, for a reason. And that's seeding mass consciousness. Just like that movie, Leave the World Behind, which I did a whole decode on it. And that has been seeding and preparing him. And that's what I'm saying. The only way, ladies and gentlemen, is the military, because this is not only, shall we say, warfare. I mean, warfare has been fought on many fronts. Number one, the digital battleground, us. The real patriots as far as on the digital battleground, not the patriots with a Y. Then you got the real battles that when we were locked up, that were fought. The unseen wars that were fought. We got them going on. So we've got our own little battles going on here in the digital realm, but there's also the real confrontation of evil with the real, well, as I said, the military. Military have been the only way. The military have been basically, as I said, they've been used in ways that others haven't used them. President Trump used the Army Corps of Engineers. Remember when they threatened President Trump back in the day, Chuck Schumer, Pelosi, about the wall? Because they know what that wall meant. That wall, what they were trying to do is open borders to allow the flood of immigrants, illegals, to flood. And then Soros's machines were waiting. Then what they tried to do, ladies and gentlemen, is not basically to do a workaround. So that all they had to do was, why did the radical left, think about this, why did the radical left push for the illegal immigrants to go after their driver's license so they can go and vote as a form of ID? Now, President Trump, and let's go back to that time. Remember the shutdown, because they did shut it down, and President Trump didn't buy into little Schumer's shutdowns. Don't you worry, it's not the first time. So he used the military because, remember, they shut down the government. Why? So that Congress couldn't approve, remember, to block the wall. Remember, they didn't want to build the wall. So President Trump said, well, guess what? I'm going to use the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That's what we said, red castle, green castle. That's to do with that. That's in the Q drops. President Trump used the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to build the wall. He knew the importance of it. Because remember, what did they do? What did Obama do? Weaken the military. Weaken the military. We're going to go through this in many different ways, shapes, and forms. President Trump says, I rebuilt the military. And he did. He created Space Force for a reason. Obama destroyed America's space dominance. That's another realm, ladies and gentlemen, a very important realm. Also, President Trump, okay, has been using psychological warfare against the deep state. That is real. Known as the Ghost in the Machine, 4th Division and 8th Division of Psychological Operations Groups out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That's where they are. That's what they specialize in, psyops, warfare. That was necessary, has been necessary. We are, after all, in mind warfare. General Flynn has come out and said a few things which make perfect sense. Remember, he wrote 5G warfare. 5G warfare is real. Disinformation is necessary, as General Flynn said in that. Remember that video that I showed you the other day where I stopped it? And it said disinformation is necessary and it's happening. Think about this. I'll give you an example. The boats, you know, the ones that they've been going out there and Venezuela and the drugs and all that. Think about this. It gives them an excuse while people are focusing on that. They're able to do other ops. The military, they do dark ops, ladies and gentlemen. And I've been saying it, that place right there, the Caribbean is infested with all the filth. And what they're doing is they're cleaning up shop. So they're looking, while we're looking at the drugs in Venezuela, where they've just been zapping a boat, that's all military operations, all psychological operations, ladies and gentlemen. While you're watching that, there are other things, and I was right. And I was the only one to say it at the time. You should go and watch my pulse. I said it. Where I said, don't look over here, look over there. I said about Puerto Rico. That's where the IRS, we know what the IRS is, they're a bunch of pirates. All these Cayman Islands, all this filth, it's all over there. While we're looking at the boats getting destroyed by the Navy, other operations, and I was right. You've seen that the military have been going over to Puerto Rico and taking care of business there. I was right again. That's why I say this, that's why General Flynn said disinformation is necessary. Disinformation is real. So you're focusing, the masses are focusing on this. Oh yeah, that President Trump's doing amazing things. It has another, so basically it's has multiple purposes, if you will. So when he does something, he's also getting the support of the people. Do you see what I mean? See, President Trump cares. He's getting rid of the drug problem. He got rid of it a long time ago. He got rid of it a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. Just like MS-13, just like others. But how do you rally the support of people organically? It's like this. Under Biden, we know what that little thing is. I will go through it again. This, and this. Under me, I'm kicking ass and I'm destroying all the boats, and there's no boats, and water. He keeps giving us water comps. There's a reason for it. After all, we're in Red October, aren't we? We'll go through that as well. But you get what I mean. By doing what he's doing with the military, never before have you seen, shall we say, the people get behind the military with such pride. So it's been done by design. And then President Trump says, never before have we seen so many people wanting to join the military that we have to knock them back now. Before we had problems. So in other words, it's having a multiple function by what he's doing. Number one, he's gaining the support of people. His popularity is going up. National pride is going up. People want to be part of something bigger and join the military. And at the same time, while that's going on over there, no one's focusing on what's going on with Puerto Rico, what's going on in the Caribbean, all that filth. We know what's in the Caribbean. Water Island that Biden had with his brother. With the submarine base there. We know who used the submarine base. Good old Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah, isn't it funny that she came up not long ago? Epstein Island's there. Necker Island, all these, and there's a lot. This is what I'm saying. There's a lot of islands there, ladies and gentlemen. The Cayman Islands, where they keep their plunder. The pirates of the Caribbean keep their plunder over there. And don't you find it strange how all the banks in the world happen to be at the Cayman Islands? That's what I'm saying. There are things that are happening. And as General Flynn has said, disinformation is real. Disinformation is necessary. Distractions are real. Distractions are necessary. Now, like I said, the military will use to build the wall. Number one, to stop the illegals. Number two, the trafficking, human trafficking, child trafficking, cartel, MS-13, going across the border and doing the business, the 187s. You know, we know what that's all about. Then to flood the immigrants in there and weaken America from within. As JFK said, infiltration instead of invasion. America has been on, shall we say, the cabal's targets, and I'll tell you why. Second Amendment, the world's biggest militia, the biggest threat. Biggest threat. That's why Obama and all the rest of it, they were doing all these shootings. You know that shootings that were taking place? That was all done by design. We know the CIA have been working with, you know, and using therapists to profile candidates and using MK Ultra. That's all come out now. That's all out there. That's all factual. Everything's been about weakening the military, even the steel, ladies and gentlemen, even the steel. Steel is very important. So what did Obama do? Steal from China? Steal from the Ukraine? That's what they did. Inferior steel. While they were lining their pockets, they were weakening the military in many ways, shapes, and forms. That's why the only way, ladies and gentlemen, is the military. Has always been. That's why I say thank God that that they put that in the Constitution. President Trump is using his powers as commander-in-chief. That's why he's putting up all these. Have you seen Washington, D.C.? Yeah, we've got the National Guard there in the military. They've just been cleaning up. No, they're done what they're there for a reason. And they're going to be staying there. You heard that? No, they're going to be staying there. They're not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden, we've got them all over the place. We're going to be sending them to Chicago. Oregon's on fire, Portland, Oregon. And, we know what LA, and it's all, this is what I'm saying. You're preparing your assets. Remember what Q says, assets are ready. Well, you got to get remember, you're playing a game of chess. And when you're playing a game of chess, you got to make sure that you got your strategy in check. And President Trump is the master strategist. Before we get to that checkmate, as the Q drop says about checkmate. And we know in that arrangement, checkmate means Obama. And the queen in that arrangement is Hillary. And then you can see that it's, you're seeing how we're going up that ladder right now with Comey, with this arraignment, ladies and gentlemen. There's no coincidences why it's happening now. You can see the writings on the wall. James Comey, Brennan, and all the others. And it's going to go right to Podesta. 11.3. We're getting a lot of those comps. And then, ladies and gentlemen, as I say to you all, when you see Podesta's announcement of his indictment, get your affairs in order. I keep telling you, that's where you got to start getting ready, because that's on Q Drop 34, and we know what's coming our way. The long and awaited EBS. But also 11.4, which is where President Trump is going to be a dictator for a day. He's going to be a dictator for a day. Temporary military control as per the US War Manual. And you can see how it's all coming to fruition. Everything is. It's all leading up. Now, President Trump also has the Insurrection Act. He just spoke about it the other day in the Oval Office. Oh, if I have to use it, I will use it. I'm sure you will, President Trump. And I know you will be using it. Because the Insurrection Act, what does it do? It allows the president to deploy military forces inside the United States. Because basically, they got the thing called Posse Comitatus Act, which basically bars the military forces, federal military forces, to be used in civilian law enforcement activities. But guess what? The Insurrection Act authorizes and suspends the Posse Comitatus Act and allows, during the time of rebellion and domestic violence, to enforce the law. And remember, it's under the Constitution. It's under the Constitution. Now, I've always said, ladies and gentlemen, towards the end, it's not going to be easy. And it's going to separate the wheat from the chaff. That's what President Trump's doing right now. And this is what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We are also separating the wheat from the chaff here as well. Only the strong-minded, only the ones that use logic, as Q says, use your logic. People are emotionally compromised. Rather than using their logic, they use fear, they listen to hearsay, and they take themselves off center. Now remember, we've been running this marathon for a very long time now. Those that watch me for years know what I'm talking about. Those that have watched me for years have heard me say this, that towards the end, it's going to show everyone's mettle. Towards the end, it's going to show who is here for the long run. towards the end, you're going to see people fall because they don't have it to take. They don't have what it takes to push it all the way through because they listen to all the hearsay, the fear porn. President Trump has to do what he has to do. He may seem that he's with Bibi and all the rest of the gang, but that's what it is. He may seem. Remember, we are in mind warfare. And we know what mind warfare is. Up is down, left is right. That's the reality. Q drop 833. Reality is labeled as conspiracy. You are made to feel crazy. But we don't allow us to feel crazy because we know what is factual. Facts, evidence, and receipts is what grounds us. Using our logic is what grounds us. You are told to obey. You are sheep to them, pawns to be sacrificed. Remember, we are winning. Do not trust what you read. Up is down, left is right, boom. That's the reality. That we are in mind warfare. And there's going to be those that are going to fall, ladies and gentlemen, because they don't get it. They don't get it, and they allow their worst nightmares to be entertained. They allow the devil's workshop to operate. What have I been about? Facts, evidence, and receipts. I stand by them. Because you know what? You can't dispute it. It's factual. We're not working with date promising. No. We don't work with hearsay. No. We work with the truth. That's what we work with. Now, let's continue on. How about we go to the first part of our decode, which is President Trump's speech. Okay, when he was with the generals. Now, I want to speak about that. People would have said, well, why do you get all the generals of the world to get together under the one roof and to speak to them about things they could have spoken about because remember, they all have secured communications. No matter where they are in the world, their lines are secured. So why waste the time and remember all the logistics and all the money spent to bring all those generals to that one place? And I'm going to tell you something, not all is what it seems. Remember when I'll give you an example. And I was the only one that said it. You remember this? When I did that decode on the parade, I said, think about this. He's using that as a thing to boost morale for the American people. What he's really doing, though, is he's bringing in the military, preparing all the assets like the Trojan horse. Like remember the tanks and all the military equipment that was coming in by train. Had that been happening without a parade, oh, Trump is a dictator, he would have had a lot of resistance. So how do you get all these assets, military assets, into Washington, D.C. and preparing it for the grand finale? Well, you do it in the guise. Oh, no, the parade was amazing. Love the parade. But that's not the purpose of it all. The purpose is to basically get all the military assets, like a master strategist that he is, in place so he doesn't seem like a dictator, Because the time is coming, ladies and gentlemen, where they will be used. Because nobody saw them leave by train as well. No, we all saw them come in there, pouring in with the trains. But like everything else, there's distractions are necessary, as General Flynn would say. Disinformation is necessary. Because while people were being, shall we say, distracted by something else, nobody gave it a second thought of whether that equipment had left. And we know it's there. This is the genius of this man. And this is the thing. That general speech, it's the things that weren't shown on the camera that made the difference. Do you think he would fly all those generals there for that little meeting? You think so? Just to have a bit of so we can have Pete Hegseth swinging his private parts around, acting like he's King Dingaling. And then this whole speech about things. No, that could have been done basically on a secured line. Why bring him there? Everything is being done by design. As I said, you're not going to remember, all these people were coming out, all these former generals, all these big brass people, former brass in the military, and saying, even General Flynn said it was very unusual. It's never happened before. Then you're being gaslit by Vance. Oh no, this is normal. No, sorry, Vance. We know we're not buying that garbage. Because think about this. You're preparing for a battle. The grand finale, like I like to call it. So you're going to call in all your generals. And you're not going to do this publicly. You're not going to sit there and talk about your plans. How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? No. You're going to do it in the guise of, we're getting together, we're going to have a little bit of a powwow speech for the public. But do you tell the enemy how you're going to attack? You don't, do you? This is why I'm saying distractions are necessary. Disinformation is necessary. And the only way is the military. And we know that's how they operate. That's fact. We know that's the only way. And you've been seeing that a lot of weird things have been going on in this world. The world has been turned upside down, left, right, and center. And I'm telling you, this has all been done by design. This is all part of psychological warfare that we're in. We're all in this, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, we are winning. Do not trust what you read. Everything that's going on out there is shaking the masses up. It literally is. Like I said about the business to do with what? To do with Gaza. That genocide, that Holocaust has been committed. It's been committed since 1948. It's been going on for a very long time. But don't you find it coincidental that it happened to be on this very day 2 years ago, because it was in 2023, that happened to be October the 7th, and that equals 17, which equals Q? As Q says, how many coincidences before it calls it mathematically impossible? Before you call it mathematically impossible. Now think about that. There are no coincidences, none whatsoever. You've seen the ridiculousness of Hamas on these paragliders, coming in, zooming around the place. It's some godforsaken place in the middle of the desert. The whole thing's staged. But what is it doing? It's awakening the mass consciousness. Remember, before you couldn't speak about this, about the You know, otherwise you'll be called an anti-Semite. All of a sudden, everything's flipped over in another direction. That's the genius of this plan, ladies and gentlemen. That's why Q also says this. Leaving Israel for last. Why? Because a lot of things point in that direction. Before they use the machine, Hollywood machine, the mainstream media, the government, think about it, they were protected, the Zionists. They were able to commit the atrocities. These atrocities, as I said, have been going on for a very long time. But who's also been involved with allowing this to continue? Don't think about Qatar being good. Saudi Arabia, we know that's triple plus. Don't think about Turkey being good. Don't think about Jordan being good. No. Why didn't they do something about it in the past? Why all of a sudden are they jumping up and down? Do you see the hypocrisy? President Trump is exposing the hypocrisy. In fact, they're all part of the one club. Who's the one that's been pulling the strings behind the black curtain? Triple plus. Saudi Arabia. Why do you think President Trump went there? People don't realize this has all been done by design. And that's what Q says. 99% of the people end up in hospital when they know the truth. They just can't handle it. We are saving Israel for last. Very specific reason, not mentioned a single time, Q. Remember when I said that they create the illusion of the good and the evil, all that sort of stuff? That's exactly what they do. And it's all in the name of control. Remember the Freemasonry, remember they're all part of the Freemasons. I've shown you that. What are the Freemasons? What have they got? The black and white checkerboard. That represents division. And when people are divided, they're easily controlled and manipulated. That's at their core of their, right to their core, what they believe. I mean, why have they got the black and white checkerboard? In other words, what does Q says there? What does Q say in Q drop 833? They liken us to being what, ladies and gentlemen? Pawns. Q drop 833. Pawns to be sacrificed. Sacrifice. What are pawns on a chessboard, ladies and gentlemen? Who's the one with the chessboard? Who's the one with the chessboard? The Freemasons, right? That's what they believe in. And what are we? We're not going to be pawns anymore. We're not stupid, are we? But apparently there are people that are stupid, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, they do exist. They do exist. That's what we are. These things over there. That's why Q says you are sheep to them, pawns to be sacrificed. So those people that go out there romanticizing Freemasonry, think again. You've been that pawn on their checkerboard. That's what you've been. Why does Q bring up about symbolism will be their downfall and show you the Freemasons' compass if they're good? Q is in drops has exposed symbolism. And the symbolism also ties right back to ancient Egypt. What did JFK say? How he finds the secret societies repugnant. And then you've got these entities out there that go on romanticizing about Freemasonry. Give me a break, will you? And it's about time that people stop enabling these entities. Anyway, how about we continue on with the D code? This is where President Trump got together with the generals. And as I said, done by design. Done by design. In order to what? Basically, yeah, we're getting together, we speak, but hold on a minute, he could have done that through a secure line. It's a guise, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, this information is necessary, as General Flynn says. And it says it in the Q drops. This information is necessary. Then you got, we're in mind warfare. We are. Let's continue on. Anyway, let me just get this all sorted for you. Okay, here we go. So basically, you know when President Trump says, great job. Great job, Pete. Not many times have I heard that thing over and over and over again. Number one, great job. We know great actors are being used. What makes movies good? Great actors. But then also the word Job. Let's liken it to the word Job. Now, in the story of Job, God allowed Satan to tempt Job and to see if Job would remain faithful to God. You get what I mean? So anyway, let's watch it.
Very much, Pete. Great job you're doing, too.
There you go. So he said, great job, Pete. Lovely.
And I built the military. Those are the two things I say more than anything else. And I also kept us safe at the borders.
Right. He built the military and kept us safe at the borders. Yes, very important. Very important. Number one, this drop says it, 570. Very fundamental. The 16-year plan to destroy America. President Trump rebuilt the military, and he says he built the wall as well. The borders. Very fundamental. Barack Hussein Obama, 8 years. The 16-year plan was 8 years of Hussein Obama, then following on with Hillary Clinton. Now, part of this plan was to install rogue operators, okay, that would be loyal to Obama. Well, think about the rogue operators. ISIS. Leak classified intel and military assets. Cut funding to military. Yes, he did that as well. Command away from generals. Remember the generals that he put in? Corrupted. Then we keep going down here. Turned a blind eye. North Korea. Oh no, they're the baddies. Don't even bother going there. That was the front for the CIA, known as a black site, which allowed them to create nuclear bombs. Nuclear bombs. And who was the one that was funding this little get up right here? Well, remember, money was coming in from different areas like Obama. So Obama, the EU, it's all about destroying America. So the fund and the supply of the material, so the uranium one, remember this is to do with uranium one, the material, the funding, they poured it into Iran in the guise of the nuclear, remember the deal? And remember also to lift the sanctions to enrich those entities. That's why President Trump talks about enrichment. Also, what they did as well was to kill NASA, and prevent space domination. Now, who's been involved in this? Elon Musk. Remember, what did they do? Obama gave the information that they remember NASA. Okay, they were about building ICBMs and certain technologies, military technologies, and they got all that with that from NASA and the Department of Defense, and they gave it to good old Elon. And also remember Obama. What do you think, Elon? How did he get rich, guys? What, from his being a smart man? No. Obama. Elon's very corrupted. You don't get it. A lot of corruption's going to come out about him. I've always been right about Elon. Now, kill NASA and prevent space domination. It's about weakening America from within, downing the military satellites and worldwide secure comms, and install weapons of mass destruction. So getting rid of the military satellites to prevent detection and to stop any attacks. That was brought down by Obama. Risks of EMP, electromagnetic pulse, in the space, shall we say, the space realm, the origins there. In other words, America would be open for attack. And that was thanks to good old Obama and their plan that they've had. Don't you worry, it's really bad. Then Hillary Rodham Clinton was going to take over. They thought that she wasn't going to lose, that she was going to take it to the next step and fulfill what was on those Georgia Guidestones. World War III, death and weapons, ladies and gentlemen, real. War fake and controlled. So in other words, the war was done by design. In other words, it was fake and it was controlled. And think about this, population growth, like on the Georgia Guidestones. Remember that? And then these entities would be pocketing billions of dollars. Then they would eliminate the government, the military. They would kill the economy and starve basically everybody and enslave those that they would use them. Remember, 500 million on the Georgia Guidestones? That would be the enslaved. Open borders. Revise the Constitution. Ban sale of firearms. Remove your Second Amendment. Install a team of corrupt judges in SCOTUS, Supreme Court. Then remove people, murder, 187. They would remove the electoral colleges. They would allow the Soros machines, the illegals, to run through the open borders. And the Soros machines would be used to manipulate the votes. They would limit and then remove the funding of the military. The closure of the United States military installations worldwide, starting off with Germany. Isn't that interesting? When we talk about the New World Order, where SQ says Nazi World Order, there's nothing new. And where did it all start from? Germany. And then also remember who was also bought and sold off, who was also connected. Remember also in the Q drops, it mentioned about Merkel being connected with Hitler through relations. Destruction of opposing mainstream media. So in other words, all the good journalists gone. Everything in that means kill box. Pure evil. Ladies and gentlemen, pure evil. Weaken military assets, including illegal votes. And it says here, Hillary Rodham Clinton, March 13, 2013, was intercept. Very interesting. So this fight has been going on for a while now. That's why President Trump said, I had to rebuild the military. Very important. Because they were weakening. Obama was weakening the military using inferior products as well. Steel was weakened. Steel is very important, especially when you're building ships. That's why President Trump says we've got to start building ships again. Obama was about destroying the military, cutting funding. And the other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be surprised. Look, we shouldn't be surprised. Snowden isn't good. Snowden has always worked for the CIA. How do you get a CIA asset into the NSA? Oh no, he quit the CIA and then he went to the NSA and he plays the game of being the whistleblower. No, the truth is going to be shown about him. ISIS was created by Obama, and we know what ISIS is all about. MS-13, funded. Basically, what did MS-13 do? Well, Seth Rich and others that went against them, against the deep state, were silenced, were murdered, were 187th. That's why President Trump had to do what he had to do. That's why he had to build the borders. Borders are more important than you would ever know, ladies and gentlemen. More important. The military have been the only way. Now think about this. They've been weakening the military and weakening the space dominance to weaken America infiltration instead of invasion. Thank you very much, President Trump, for those comms. Let's continue on.
Very good borders. There could be no higher honor than to serve as your commander-in-chief. It is a great honor.
Why is he saying it's a great honor to serve as a commander-in-chief? Not as your president. He's speaking directly to the military. As the commander-in-chief, he's in control of the military. The President of the United States, or POTUS, is basically working within the realms of the corporation, working for the foreign entity. Whereas President Trump there is speaking to the military as the commander-in-chief. Let's continue on.
Department of War, we were sitting there. I said, didn't it used to be called the Department of War? And he goes, yes, sir. They changed it like in the early 50s.
Right, they did. Who was the one, ladies and gentlemen, and by design, who changed it from the Department of War to the Department of Defense, ladies and gentlemen? It was none other than Truman. The 33rd, there you go, symbolism will be their downfall. The 33rd President of the United States. Harry S. Truman. Yeah, that name Harry rings a bell, doesn't it? Especially when it comes to Freemasonry. Someone that likes to romanticize about it. It doesn't surprise me. Are you sure he's not related to him? But anyway, Grandview Mason. This is from the Freemasons website. And here we go. On October 19, 1945, Truman was given the 33rd degree of the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rites for the Southern Jurisdiction. Truman wrote in 1939 that a system of morals which makes it easier for you to live for your fellow man. No. We know what Freemasonry is all about. In fact, it's infiltrated, as I said, and I've shown you this many, many times, in the religions, in the church. I've shown you that as well. The creation of the Department of Defense in 1947, that was done by Truman again, under the National Security Act. So it was changed by him. There you go. Nice little piece of information there, isn't it? Why did it become the Department of Defense? The national military establishment didn't last long. Just 2 years later, Truman signed a series of amendments to the National Security Act and replaced it with a Department of Defense. Do you find it a coincidence? There are none. I'm going to show you there are none. They don't exist. Now, President Trump went and spoke on the Harry S. Truman, USS Harry S. Truman ship. None. Remember, President Trump says things for a reason. And he uses the venues for a reason. That's the purpose. So why would he talk about the Department of it was called the Department of War, then went to the Department of Defense? Well, he wants us to go and decode. He wants us to find the truth. And that's what we do. We find the facts, evidence, and receipts, and we've shown who was the one to do it. A 33-degree Mason. We know what Truman's all about. He went from the Department of War to the Department of Defense. And then President Trump turned it back to the Department of War. Why? Because George Washington as well. And George Washington didn't belong to any party but the party of common sense. Now, George Washington also was a Freemason. Was also a Freemason. That's fact. Americans' history is based on Freemasonry. And it has infiltrated every area. Fact. So you can see there's a reason and a rhyme why President Trump says what he says. There's a reason for everything. And it's to basically go and do your research and to find what he's telling us. No one looks to see why, when it changed. Let's continue on.
We had the horror show in Afghanistan, which is really the reason I think that Putin went in. He saw that horror show.
Horror show. Really interesting, those terms of words. Remember the Afghanistan business? What does he mean by the horror show? When did that take place with Afghanistan, ladies and gentlemen? Do you remember that? Where the fake, remember the fake plane looked like it was inflated? Remember that business? Yeah, because it was. The whole thing was staged like everything else. And remember, what does General Flint says? That disinformation is real. Disinformation is necessary. We were looking at that, weren't we? And remember, see, under Biden, creating a contrast. Under Biden, but we know that President Trump has come out and said that he was the 46, and I'm going to show you that as well in the same speech. No coincidence. There are none whatsoever. Right? So when the US leave Afghanistan, What date was it, ladies and gentlemen? It was on the 30th of August, 2021. 30th of August, 2021. I would say, going back to that time, that was the time of the good old COVID was basically in play. Remember that one? Think about this. It's going to make sense. While we were distracted, while the world was watching this, something else was taking place. Remember, disinformation is necessary. Disinformation is real. While we're watching this, other things were taking place. When we go back to that time, did we forget about the good old COVID? No, let me remind you that when I type in the word horror show, that there's no coincidence why that word has anything to do with it says about Afghanistan. Afghanistan, he's telling us about Afghanistan to go to that era, that time. So we go to that time and we also know what was taking place during that time. The horror show, right? Known as COVID, the scametry. Remember the horror show? And if we go to the Q drops, which I will show you in a moment, the horror show, let me show you, ladies and gentlemen, I'll bring it up now. When we type up horror show in the Q drops, it brings us to the time of COVID. Q drop 4250. It's time to end the horror show. It's time to stand and lead by example. Enough have seen. Domino effect. Note who wears a mask and who does not. That's why President Trump has given us those comms. Because Afghanistan is the time, remember when they were pushing the vaccine, that bioweapon, because it's not a vaccine, it's a bioweapon. They were pushing out the masks. They were pushing out all that stuff. And President Trump said, horror show, which we know mirrors are important. And he said it twice. So we got a 5 of 5, comms are clear. While this was going on, things were taking place. They were using the lockdowns and things like that, the COVID, to also conduct dark ops. And as you know, as it says in the Q drops as well, disinformation is necessary. Disinformation is real. Distractions are necessary. Thank you very much, President Trump.
We were a little bit threatened by Russia recently, and I sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, the most lethal weapon ever made. Number one, you can't detect it.
Right. Number one, you can't detect it. Now, think about this. We're in October. Red October. What is that all about? Cannot be detected. Well, let's have a look. That movie, The Hunt is on. That's where President Trump, he's got that thing in the Q drop. The 1st of October comes from that movie. The Hunt for the Red October. Now, that movie is based on a submarine that is using a stealth-enhancing caterpillar drive using magneto-hydrodynamics to move nearly silently. Now, think about this. What they show you is what they got. So they show you something, remember, they show you, and then they put it under the guise of fictional or science fiction. But they put it in front of your face. So this magneto-hydrodynamic system, caterpillar drive system, okay, is basically what President Trump's saying about undetectable, referring to Red October. And what that system, what that movie was all about, is basically to allow the submarine to attack the United States undetected. Which obviously is mirrored in what President Trump is saying about we sent. Think about that. We sent a submarine that was undetected. But then remember when the North Korean submarine during the time, remember that one? And they tried to get President Trump to press the button. Remember that whole thing? How they used a North Korean submarine in the guise of being a Russian submarine. Remember that little missile that went firing in Hawaii and tried to get Air Force One? We've spoken about that before. You know, that was a little undetected submarine. But the thing is, it was all planned. Future proves past, ladies and gentlemen. Future proves past. So this is what President Trump's alluding to. Now, he said that the moment that they said the N-word, that word that we shouldn't be using, he sent a submarine to the coast of Russia. The coast. What does it say in the movie Red October? To send it to the United States coast undetected. You know what I mean? That's the thing. And the thing is, as I said, I've been through this decode before. I've shown you in the Q drops. It was a North Korean sub. That's what it said in the Q drops. So we work with facts, evidence, and receipts here. All right? That's how we operate. And we don't work with hearsay. That's how we operate. Now, as I said, it was a North Korean submarine that went missing. Let me show you. I've got the thing here. It was Red October. Let's see where we got that little drop there. Okay. Give me a quick moment, ladies and gentlemen, while I bring it up. Okay. I'm just going to find it. Okay. Here we go. Q drop 168. There you go. Q drop 168. It's right there. Q, glad you're here. Can you confirm this theory to Red October? Saw the sub searches on the 13th. There we go. North Korean sub. I know my Q drops back to front, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you worry about that one. And remember that little meeting with Kim Jong-un? He let Trump know what was going on. Remember that little meeting at the Marina Bay? Watch my DK, please. Don't assume, don't say hearsay. Hearsay doesn't get you anywhere. Facts, evidence, and receipts does. Now, let's get back to it.
There's no way. We're 25 years ahead of Russia and
25 years ahead of Russia and China. 25 years ahead. Well, Q dropped 25, ladies and gentlemen, 11.3 marker. That's the thing. 11.3. We consistently get 25s. 25, 15s, 25. Okay, so we go to Q drop 25. Proof to begin. We all sincerely appreciate the work you do. Keep up the good fight. The flow of information is vital. We know what 11.3 is. Heading towards the end game. That's where it is.
China in submarines. Russia's actually second in submarines. China's third, but they're coming up. They're coming up.
They're coming up. Very interesting choice of words, President Trump. They're coming up. They're coming up. Now, what is he talking about there? What is he alluding to? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's a Q drop that basically says they're coming. So basically, what he's talking about, how the submarine is working. They're coming up. What happens when the submarine comes up? Well, make your depth 50 feet. Zero bubble. It's coming up. It's coming up. Periscope depth. Basically, they go to periscope depth to look through the periscope and observe what's going on around. So before they commit to an attack, it's actually what they're doing is they're scoping the area. And that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. Red October, we're at that point where they're actually scoping, they're at periscope depth, they're coming up, they're preparing for the attack. In other words, the assets are in place. And before they start to attack, so they make their depth 50 feet, zero bubble. Now, you're going to see President Trump, he says the word 000 over all the time because at zero bubble, that means you're basically horizontal. Right? So you're at that horizontal level. You're at a periscope depth of 50 feet. And ladies and gentlemen, that is also in the Q drops. That's what I'm saying. There are no coincidences, none whatsoever. Number one, Q drop 4800. Red October. The other one, as I said, about Red October is the being at that periscope level. They're coming up. They're coming up. Periscope depth before attack. They're preparing. He's telling you, he's giving us comms that they are preparing. They're preparing for the end game. 4756, Red October, up and upcoming, upcoming. They're coming up. Make your depth 50 feet, zero bubble. Periscope depth before attack. Have a listen to the Commander-in-Chief. He just said it. They're coming up. They're coming up. They're coming up. Reverse the words, upcoming. Upcoming. Red October, upcoming. Make your depth 50 feet, zero bubble. Periscope depth before attack. Prepare. He's telling us, get ready. We are preparing. Have a listen.
Second in submarines. China's third, but they're coming up. They're coming up.
Why did he say it twice? Mirrors are important. Mirrors are important. And if you flip it around, upcoming. Upcoming. Mirrors are important. 5 of 5, comms are crystal clear. There you go. So that makes perfect sense, President Trump. What he's trying to do is give us the heads up things are happening. They're preparing. Red October is on its way. It's happening. But what they're doing is preparing. And you can see that the comms are crystal clear. Thank you very much, President Trump.
They're coming up. But I announced that, based on his mention of nuclear, and it was really a stupid person that works for him mentioned the word nuclear, I moved a submarine or two, I won't say about the two, over to the coast of Russia. I call it the N-word. There are two N-words, and you can't use either of them.
So there you go. So it's basically Red October again. In Red October, they brought the submarine using that technology, or the genius technology, as he calls it, to basically go right to the coast without being detected. There you go.
But when somebody mentions it, that submarine started immediately thereafter. And it's just lurking, but I'm sure we're not going to have to use it. But it's an amazing, it's undetectable, totally. Ours is, theirs isn't. Theirs are totally detectable. We can detect them easily. We go right to the spot. But we have genius apparatus that doesn't allow detection.
The genius apparatus, ladies and gentlemen, the magneto-hydrodynamic caterpillar drive. Do you see how it all, I've got the God bumps right now. By what he's saying, it's all there. It's undetectable. Where in Red October, you can see that the comms are nice and clear and clean. And they're saying that it's a genius device. Well, Caterpillar drive using the magneto-hydrodynamics to move nearly silently. Now think about this. Remember, in that movie Red October, that was a Hollywood movie, right? Remember who controls the script of Hollywood? It's the CIA. The CIA controls the script. So realistically speaking, they're telling us that this is a fictional submarine. Yeah, it may be fictional in the sense that the Russians may have developed it, but it was developed. Do you see where this is going? It was developed. But then also, what does it do? This movie sets the narrative, oh, bad Russia. And the CIA have been involved in many, shall we say, movies. So President Trump is actually saying, we're the ones that developed that technology. Like, think about it. The hypersonic missile. President Trump has said, we're the ones that developed that technology. Just like the nuclear or the atom bomb. But then the question is that how does that technology go elsewhere? Someone had to give it away, didn't they? In other words, there's deals that are being made. Like Obama, how he destroyed NASA, how he basically destroyed the shuttle program. He gave all that technology to SpaceX. How do you weaken America? From within. And JFK knew it back in the day. Infiltration instead of invasion. Now that particular technology, President Trump says, we're the ones that created it. But in the movie, it's saying that the Soviets are the ones that created it, and it's fictional. Realistically speaking, we know that the CIA, as it says in the Q drops, have been involved with Hollywood scripts. That's in the Q drops, ladies and gentlemen. That is fact. And so we can find it in the Q drops, because even General Flynn did say it in his movie about that Hollywood, that the CIA have got assets in there that write the scripts. Which is true. They do. And think about this. Q drop 1646. You have a choice. The choice has always been yours. Power to the people. They want you divided. Think about it. They want us divided, weak, dumbed down. They want us in race wars. They want us in class wars. They want us in religious wars. They want us political wars. They use the media. They use Hollywood. They use political leaders. They allowed groupthink, public shame against those that challenge them. And that's what I'm saying. Like it's basically they've used this whole system to create the boogeyman, to create division, control. It's really bad. It is really, really bad. Have a look at this Q drop here. Q drop 19. Oh, yes. 19 equals Trump. Why do Democrats want to control the black population? We know what the Democrats have been involved with, the Ku Klux Klan. Why do they intentionally keep poor and need? Control. Why do the Democrats project racism on a daily basis against Republicans? It's about division. Divided we are weak. Control again. But have a look at this. Why do Democrats, through the funding of the CIA, prop up and install Hollywood media assets? There you go. That's what I'm saying. That President Trump is basically exposing, shall we say, the lies and the deceptions. So he's saying about this undetected submarine that was brought in that movie Red October. We know that the CIA have been involved in Hollywood and there are assets there, and they produce the scripts for these Hollywood movies, done by design to basically control using fear. Think about that movie. It's based on fear. Nuclear war. People are controlled. Russia, bad. Do you see what I mean? And President Trump is basically telling us this technology, this genius device, we're the ones that developed it. Well, the United States developed the hypersonic missiles. The United States developed a lot of things. But what have they done? They've weakened America. They've weakened America in every which way possible. And JFK knew about it. He knew.
Doesn't allow detection at all by anybody above water or below water.
There you go. That you can't detect it above water or below. Can you see, ladies and gentlemen, there are no coincidences, none whatsoever. How many coincidences before you call it mathematically impossible?
It's incredible. We're way ahead of everybody in that and other things.
There you go. It's true. But you know what? When you've got leaders that are corrupted, that are basically in there to weaken the military and weaken America from within, of course all that technology is going to go elsewhere.
And even Space Force, I love Space Force because that was my creation. You know, when you create something, I love it. And the people we put in there were good. I got that right.
Space Force is very crucial, very fundamental, very important. What did Obama try to do? Weaken space dominance, weaken America's space dominance. Space, as we know it, is what's going on up there. What is real is yet to be revealed. But I know it's very important. Now, space, there is also cyberspace. Space Force controls cyberspace as well. So not only is it cyberspace, it's also space. extra, as we say, when you go over the ice wall, extra territories. Now, I want to bring something to the table, ladies and gentlemen. You know I'm a Q decoder. Q is my Bible, ladies and gentlemen. It is what I swear black and blue with Q. It is what I follow. Now, let's go to Q drop 222. Are we alone? This is a question from an anon. Q drop 222, not 222, 222. Are we alone? No, we're not, ladies and gentlemen. We are not alone. The highest classification. Consider the vastness of space. Remember, the CIA also run, shall we say, these misinformation programs, like the flat earth. You think these entities such as Mr. Ike and all these others, oh yeah, no, don't you worry, Mr. Wilcox, Mr. Ike, and many others like Alex Jones have been put into this movement for a reason a long time ago. These are assets. And it's to discredit the truth. They attack them so that they get false cred. Now, what we've been told is what is flat earth and all that. Do we really know what shape it is? They put out this little flat earth like a flying pancake. Remember in Google, you type in flat earth. And then you got the flying pancake with all the icicles off the side. All these people coming out saying it's this shape, it's that shape, where they don't even know what shape it is. They don't have the facts, evidence, and receipts at hand. I've seen so many pictures, ladies and gentlemen, that you think this must have come from someone's fantasy, you know, with all these different realms, and they know that this is here and that is there. Well, have you been there? Where did you get that information from? So there's a lot of misinformation going around the place and disinformation. And what is real, we don't know. That's why I say it's better to have an open mind and let the truth come out. Now, as Q says here, no, we are not alone. Highest classification. Consider the vastness of space. So they're telling us that space is huge. Then we go to Q drop 2225. Did NASA fake the moon landings? Have we been to the moon since then? Are there secret space programs? Is this why Space Force was created? Now, Space Force is on the public domain. NASA is on the public domain. But did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that there are other agencies, entities that are not? That's the reality. Q says fake. Moon landings are real. Fake. Think about that word, fake. Moon landings are real. Now, we know that there has been scientists back in the 70s that has testified the moon being made out of plasma. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Think about this very carefully. And think about the words. False. Moon landings are real. Liken the word false to being artificial. Remember, like I did this whole decode and I've said, and remember, in the movies, they've been putting it out there, the artificial moons. Have a look at that. Look, Star Wars, the artificial moon, the Death Star. Then you got the movie not long ago called Moonfall. That was a false moon. And moon landings are real. Now, if the moon is made out of plasma, you cannot land on plasma. Fact. But what things are up there, God only knows. Programs exist that are outside of the public domain. Programs. So Space Force is one of those programs. However, that's in the public domain. What exists outside of the public domain is anybody's, shall we say, no one's got the facts and receipts to prove what other things. Now, as I said, I'm a Q decoder, and what Q comes from directly from military intelligence. Now, remember, these entities are being placed to give false credibility. Those pushing the flat earth theory, have they been up there themselves to see what's really up there? We know when you go up on the plane, you can't see the curvature. You can't see it. Then when you're up in the air, you're above the clouds. The windows on the plane are shaped a certain way. Now, what I say to people is, listen, Q has given us the heads up. Number one, that there are other space programs besides Space Force that has been created. Another thing that Q has told us that, hey, we are not alone. Consider the vastness of space. And what is space? That's what I'm saying. It's very important, ladies and gentlemen. Stick to the facts, evidence, and receipts, and then have an open mind and allow, when the truth does come in, we'll know what's real. Because there's a lot of disinformation out there. A lot of disinformation and then misinformation. Disinformation is basically, as it says, necessary. Disinformation is real. Misinformation is also necessary. Misinformation is real. But the CIA, the cabal, the deep state have been using that. And think about it. What has it done? People have basically been told this is this and this is that. And the other thing is, the majority of it is all animation. So you know, when you see about Mars and all this sort of stuff, when you see about Mars, the planet, and all these things, right? It says in the fine print, it'll say illustration or animation. So realistically speaking, we don't know what is what. That's the reality. But we know that Space Force is very necessary. Number one, remember, Obama was about bringing down the space dominance of the United States, removing military satellites, removing military assets, got rid of the NASA, shall we say, the space shuttle program. Now, China, Russia, and all that. President Trump says, oh, we have to play catch up, and now we're beating him. But now we know that Russia and China are also working with President Trump to beat to bring down the cabal, the deep state, the new world order, the Nazi world order, whatever you want to call it. That's in the Q chops as well. That's why President Trump created Space Force as well. He says it's the number one branch. Cyberspace, AI. We are living in different times, ladies and gentlemen. AI. Artificial intelligence is also a new weapon. Think about that. Artificial intelligence is intelligence. In other words, it's not a computer and you sit there and you program and it does a function. It's an evolving thing. It evolves like any intelligent, intelligence. It evolves. That's what it does. Now, when they use that technology now in warfare, it's a totally different ballgame, isn't it? So we've got that to consider. That's why President Trump had to take control and has to build the infrastructure, because how can you take control over something if you don't have the infrastructure in place to be able to do so? It only makes logical sense. Now you're seeing, for example, in the fields now, they've got drones, drone AI technology, and then they've got also the drones and just in the air, but they also got tanks as well. Totally different ball game. Totally different ball game. Which is very interesting because we are living in very, shall we say, uncertain times at this point. And moving forward is going to be very interesting. And that's why I say, by the facts, evidence, and receipts is what grounds us. That's what we go by. Let's continue on.
We put in great people initially, and we've really dominated. We really dominated in that sphere now.
We dominated that sphere.
Now, we were way behind China and Russia, and now we dominate. Space Force turned out to be a very important thing. I said from the beginning, so if this works out, we'll have 8 in 8 months. That's
8 in 8 months. Very interesting. If this works out, 8. Why the letter, or why the number 8, ladies and gentlemen? Well, he says, I've 7 wars, now I'm up to 8. 8. Think about it. What year are we in? What is very fundamental? What do we say we're in, ladies and gentlemen? What do we say? Isn't this part of the plan? Which year are we in? The 8th year of the plan. That's what he's alluding to. The 8th year. 8. Very important number. Let's go to that Q drop, ladies and gentlemen, which is Q drop 3387. Listen very carefully again. Note the past 2 years. That drop was dropped in 2019. That takes us to 2017. Note the next 6 years. That drop was dropped in 2019. Add 6 years, brings us to 2025. Add 2 plus 6 gives us 8. You were told what was going to happen. You were told what battles we face. Strategic, pre-planned, patriots are in control. Which patriots are in control? The military. Q. So he's saying 8. 8 mirrors are important. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking about the military, aren't we? So, 2 and 6 are in brackets. Why? Because we need to pay attention. Number 1, we add those numbers up, we get 8. 8 years in total, which brings us to this year. Number 2, 2 and 6 equals 26. Again, ladies and gentlemen, think about it logically. The only way is the military. Fully controlled, save and spread, once 11.3 marker verifies as the first So it verifies as the first marker. Q dropped 26. 2017. Think about it logically. The only way is the military. And I've shown you that over and over and over and over again. How many coincidences, ladies and gentlemen, before you call it mathematically impossible? So this equals to, we're on the 8th year. We've got the 5 of 5. Comms are clear. Thank you very much, Commander-in-Chief Trump. There we go.
It's pretty good. Nobody's ever done that.
No one's ever done that, President Trump. What is happening right now is all unprecedented.
22 years. He said, for 22 years,
22 years, 22. Q dropped 22. Think about it. President Trump used the military to save what? Like Abraham Lincoln used the military as the commander-in-chief to save the republic. President Trump did the same thing. That's also reflected in Q drop 22. What is he doing right now? He's putting all the chess pieces in place using the Insurrection Act, putting together using the National Guard and the Marines, the military, to be able to do what? To prepare in the guise of, remember, the Insurrection Act in times of domestic violence. Remember, everything's been done by design. Who controls the National Guard? President does. The Commander-in-Chief. Why was the National Guard recently activated in selected cities? Remember, it was activated. Remember, he used the Insurrection Act to be able to do that, but it's also in the Constitution that he has the powers. In the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, he's able to do it. Now, he's able to do that. And what are we doing right now? We're seeing that translate, ladies and gentlemen. We're seeing that translate. Now, I've spoken about this done in 30. It was done in 30 months. That had to do with General Flynn back in the day, red-pilled. You should watch my decodes. You would have got it. Now, have a look at this. The military is the only way that Lincoln was able to save the republic. That's why it's very important that we know the Constitution. We know what's going on. No wars, no civil unrest, clean and swift. So what President Trump is doing, he's using his powers as the commander-in-chief, using also the Insurrection Act, also Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, that gives him the power to do so. In the guise of, remember, this domestic violence that's taking place. Oh, we've got to go here, Chicago. We've got to go to Oregon. Remember the Summer of Love? So this is what I'm saying. And like Washington, D.C., everything's been done by design. They're putting the chess pieces in place. Remember the Red October comms? It's upcoming. It's coming up. It's coming up. Zero bubble, 50 feet. What happens? They're basically preparing for the end game. You can see how the comms are just making all the world of sense. Thank you very much, President Trump.
They did nothing but kill. But for 22 years, he's been the head of Azerbaijan for 22 years. The other day, they had $31 billion that they found. $31 billion. 31 billion different.
31 billion. Word 31, ladies and gentlemen. Q dropped 31. Very important. Very, very important. What is he trying to tell us? World stalemate. We have the goods on everyone else. That's part of the reason why some things that tie back to foreign heads of state will remain classified, but not all. We are in one of the most critical times of our country. So while we're on the 8th year of the plan, Assets have been put into place. We know that those comms about the coming up, we're in Red October, periscope depth, getting ready, scoping out, putting everything in place to go for the end game, to get to the end game. Like in the game of chess, Trump and others are working to balance the we're doing well for America. So think about this. This makes perfect sense. In other words, President Trump has been going out there and saying we're doing well. Stock markets are up. All these things are working. We're making all this money through tariffs. This all makes perfect sense. Can you see how the comms line up? So Trump and others are working to balance the we're doing well for America for the common person to endorse. So in other words, it's very important that the people get behind President Trump, because when the things start to turn in the other direction, he wants those people to stand up and say, lock them up. While at the same time, he's purifying the government and removing the bad actors who are entrenched. And think about this. The Schumer shutdown. Remember, he says it's a Democrat shutdown. Oh, that's okay. We're cleaning up shop. Well, they're using that excuse to be able to do that. Get rid of people. Get rid of all the bad actors as well. Remember, the deep state are in many layers. You got rid of the big players, but then you got all the other ones that are the tentacles that are so embedded that they needed to show themselves. Now, what are they doing? Is they're using this shutdown as a way of purifying the government. There is so much string pulling and blackmail that we need to cut off these off to truly gain the power granted to us by the patriots and hard-working people of this great country. Do you see how it all lines up? It all lines up. There we go.
Chips, the old pictures. I used to watch Victory at Sea.
Now, he says about that movie, Victory at Sea. Why is that important? The old black and white movie. Don't you
I
want?
love Victory at Sea. Look at these admirals.
He said Victory at Sea. Why, ladies and gentlemen? There we go. The movie Victory at Sea was created, originally aired in 1952. 1 plus 9 plus 5 plus 2 gives us 17, which equals Q. But I'm going to show you, ladies and gentlemen, that there are no coincidences, none whatsoever. Victory at Sea, 17. 1 plus 9 plus 5 plus 2, 17 equals Q. But we also got a 19, ladies and gentlemen. The movie was produced in 1954. 1 plus 9, 10, plus 5 plus 4. Who is speaking, ladies and gentlemen? It is President Trump. Q plus. 5 of 5 comes crystal clear. Can you see how many coincidences before you call it mathematically impossible? He used that word Victory at Sea for a reason, and the comms are there. You can see it, 17. It was originally aired in 1952. Add those numbers up, 17 equals Q. 1954, when was the movie produced? Add those numbers up, equals 19, equals Trump. We know what that means. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear, President Trump. You couldn't have made it any more, shall we say, in front of your face. There you go.
Nice 6-inch side, solid steel, not aluminum.
Right, he's talking about this. Very important. Q drop 855. 1 of 5. 1, 2, we go there. What if the steel used, right, this is what I said about before. What was Obama doing? Obama basically weakened the military. And what did they do? What if the steel used for the military grade projects was made by inferior by our enemies as a method to weaken? Can you see the comms that are crystal clear, ladies and gentlemen? He's saying about the victory at sea. Then we go to the comms and it gives us the 17, which equals Q. We know that the whiteouts, the military, are in control. Q equals military intelligence. Then we've got also, as I said, there's victory, all right, because military intelligence are in control. Whiteouts are in control. Then you've got 1954, who's also in control? President Trump. Then what happened? He says about the steel. The steel. Why does he talk about the steel? Can you see? Because Obama was weakening the military by using inferior steel, not the aluminium. It's all making sense, ladies and gentlemen. You can see, I've got the God bumps right now. It's all true. What if Hussein knew and authorized renegade? Why do they call him a renegade? A traitor. How many Marines volunteered to serve for Hussein during his term? No one wanted to. Because they knew what a traitor was. They knew what he was up to. What if his name, we don't say John McCain organised the deal? John McCain, ladies and gentlemen, was the one to organise the deal as far as bringing in that inferior steel to weaken America, weaken the American military. And the US taxpayer was subsidising the world. Remember what President Trump talks about? How the US taxpayer was subsidising the world? America has been sold to the highest bidder. America has been weakened on purpose. The depths of their treason is unimaginable. Pure evil. Hell on earth. They were wanting Hillary Rodham Clinton to win. That's why President Trump talks about this. Do you see? Who's the one that got victory? President Trump did. Victory at sea. The comms are clear.
Aluminum that melts if it looks at a missile coming.
There you go. Aluminum that melts when it sees a missile coming. So they used inferior steel and mixed it with aluminum.
Got it.
There you go. Why would he say that, ladies and gentlemen? Why? Why would he tell you this? Look at this. Q drop 8, 8, 3. 8 plus 8, 16 plus 3, 19 equals Trump. How amazing is that? Then we get in the comms. Bang. One after the other. We know President Trump's in control. Now, was it necessary for China to produce 10 times as much steel as the US? What if war breaks out? President Trump, people got to get, steel is very important when it comes to the military. That's why President Trump brought the steel industry using the tariffs, the threat of tariffs. Bring back the chips. Very important because they were using that against, and remember, those that control the chips control the bombs. Remember, the bombs use the chips. President Trump brought the chips back. They knew what they were getting up to. They knew that they were using the chips to basically hack into military servers. That's all been proven. Then what happened here? The steel. Steel is very important. That's why President Trump used the tariffs as a weapon. Think about it, as a weapon. So he can bring back the steel. People don't realize that President Trump here is gaining the shall we say, the support of the people. But also there is so much more to this, ladies and gentlemen, so much more that meets the eye. So much more. Plus deliberate performance issues to impact military infrastructure. were sold out. You have so much more than you know, Q. So they were trying to destroy the military and the infrastructure, and Obama sold out the military. They use inferior products to design to weaken, and Obama knew about it, and Hillary knew about it. They sold everybody out, ladies and gentlemen. Do you see what I mean? That's why President Trump said about the victory. See, do you see what it means to be a decoder, a master decoder? To go right deep where others don't go, to go beyond the peripheral. I'm opening your eyes. I'm taking you to places where others won't take you. That's why I say we all got to help and do our bit here. Now, I don't put anything behind a paywall. I'm showing you with all my heart and soul. I'm putting the passion behind my decodes. I'm taking the time to explain it. And all I ask from you all is to put a thumbs up, great comments, and share this around the place. We all need to do our bit. Rightio, let's continue. Now, President Trump says about the 47. This is where he says about Biden. And I'm going to explain it. Don't you worry. That's what I'm saying. You can say that the dash matters, but the dash doesn't matter if you don't know what it's talking about. Here we go.
You know, that means 47 and 47. So I'm 45, 46, and 47.
I'm 45, 46, and 47. He say, so I'm 45, 46, and 47. President Trump never left, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why he gives us 19 comms, and I'm the only one that's brought it out, ladies and gentlemen, you can go and check my work. The others are saying about the dash. The dash doesn't mean, we know what the dash means, continuation. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to work it out like some idiot thinks we do. No. 19, when he gives us the 19 comms, means he was the 46. Because in the 19, ladies and gentlemen, it was Rutherford B. Hayes. Yes, Steve, yes. He used the 45, 46, 47. Yeah, better than the dash. I agree, Steve. Now, the 19th president was Rutherford B. Hayes. Rutherford B. Hayes, on March the 3rd, 1822, was sworn in secret as the 19th president, just like President Trump was sworn in as the 46th president. He never, ever left. Rutherford B. Hayes was sworn in secret on March the 3rd. There we go, March the 3rd. Ended on March the 4th, Ulysses S. Grant, 34, Q+. There we go, March 3rd, right there. March 4th, 34. 3-4, 34, Q+. So you can see already we've got comms there as well. So Rutherford B. Hayes was sworn in secret on March the 3rd before Ulysses S. Grant's term ended on March the 4th. President Trump, by giving us the 19 comms, has basically indicated to go to the 19th president. Those that continue to say that he's the 19th president are incorrect. The fact is that there was only one 19th president, that was Rutherford Hayes. He was number 19. That's why we get the 19 comms. President Trump was the 46th president. So I'm the 45th, 46th, and 47th. 5 of 5, your comms are crystal clear, President Trump. We get it. We know who's in control. We know that you never, ever left.
If you think about it, I just don't want the credit for 46. I don't want to have their open borders and people coming in from all over the world.
Remember when President Trump said the one that signed the auto pen or used the auto pen, right, was the real president? It was him. That's what he said. That's what he means.
Including jails and mental institutes. I don't want that on my record, but I like having it.
He goes, including, did you see that? Have a listen, ladies and gentlemen. Have a listen to the way he speaks. He speaks between the lines. He doesn't want to have it on his record, but he goes, I like having it. Watch this.
People coming in from all over the world, including jails and mental institutes. I don't want that on my record, but I like having it.
It's like a negative positive. I don't like having it on my record, but I like having it. Did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? This is the way President Trump's comms work. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear. We know that you never left President Trump. We know that the 19 comms indicate Rutherford Hayes, as he was sworn in secrecy, so were you as the 46. And we know that basically you've told us that you were the 46th president as well.
And we've begun construction on what we call the Golden Dome missile defense shield. It'll be the most sophisticated in the world. And Canada called me a couple of...
Isn't that very interesting to mention Canada? And since they came on Happy 17 Day today, very interesting, President Trump. And this is the thing. President Trump also says about the 51 state here.
Weeks ago, they want to be part of it. To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51.
There you go. Why don't you join our country and become 51 state? Did everyone see what he said today? Did everyone see that little business where he said, why don't you just, you came here to announce that you're about the 51 state. He gave, good old Carney a roasting. It was so funny, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, and President Trump laughs about it, and we know that he is actually means it, and we know what it really means, that 51 state, that Canada happened to already be the 51 state. It's just that obviously it's got to be done by design. It's got to be done in stages. Yeah, we get it. All right, it's got to be done in the sense of, we're very funny. You know what I mean? They're all laughing about it, but it's already happened. That's the thing. Let me see if I can find it, ladies and gentlemen. There was a bit of a laugh, wasn't it? Where is it? White House. Let's have a look at the White House little video there with Mr. Carney. Okay, good old carnival. It was a bit of a carnival today, wasn't it? That was funny. You got to laugh at good old Carney. They were laughing it up, and it was a joke. It really was. But realistically speaking, it wasn't a joke. It's a joke, but not a joke. You know what I mean? It's actually being serious. When President Trump said it, let me see if I can find it. Let's see. I think Rapid Response has got it in their little videos. Oh, where are you? When you want something, it's hard to find. It's always the case, isn't it? Let's just see if we could just type in Carney. Anything come up under Carney? Nope. Let me just see if I can find it, guys. It was in the, I was watching it and I was like laughing. Yeah, he roasted him like a clown, didn't he, Carol? We were all laughing about it, and especially President Trump was laughing too. Where is it? Carney. Oh,
He's a nice man, but he could be nasty.
Is it that one there?
Very nasty. Maybe as nasty as anybody. He could represent me anytime. I will tell you, I'm not saying that because he's here. No, he is.
I'm just listening to him.
I think Canada, let me put it this way. I can tell you this because I deal with lots of leaders all over.
Okay. I'm just trying to find that part where he talks about Canada. Oh, where is it? It was funny, guys. He said it and he roasted him on that particular thing about 51 state. Let's see. Oh, here we go. It must be here.
Imagine bring.
No, I'll just gotta wait for this little ad to finish. Just wait for a moment, guys. Okay, I think it's here. Here we go.
Very strong relationship, and your hosting of the various countries that showed up, that was a beautiful job you did, and I appreciate it very much. We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We'll certainly be talking about Gaza. We're in very serious negotiations to, I guess you could say, depending on the way you count, 3,000 years. You could say 500 years. You could say, but that it's been raging for a long time. And I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. It's something even beyond the Gaza situation. We want a release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team is over there now.
I'm just trying to find that spot.
Yep. I don't think, not that I've seen, but there's a real chance that we could do something. So you may have some questions on that later. But in the meantime, we'll spend some time and we'll make some deals and we'll do some things that are good for both of our countries. And Mark, it's an honor to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, you kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The
what
merger of Canada and the United
States. That wasn't where I was going.
Yeah, no. That's the thing. I mean, look, it's already happened, guys. It really has already happened. It's just a matter of, obviously people need to warm up to it. And we know that Carney, by no coincidence, is connected to Ghislaine Maxwell as well. I've shown you that. And Podesta. Remember the little clips I showed you before about, good old Carney connections? I did. And then remember, Carney was also working for the Bank of England. Very interesting little thing that was, especially when he was running the show. Was he the CEO? I think he was, or the Bank of England. Yeah, and he was running the show there. Obviously, degenerates run that place. Anyway, let's continue on.
Come the 51st state, and you get it for free for $17 trillion.
So he's given us the 17 comms. There's a reason for this, ladies and gentlemen. There's a reason why he's given us the 17 comms. Let's continue on.
Coming in. We have 17 trillion more than that in 8 months.
17 trillion in 8 months. He's given us, hey, whiteouts are in control because we know 17 equals Q. Right? And we know that mirrors are important. And we know that what he's saying in 8 months, meaning we're in the 8th year of the plan. Because remember, 17 equals Q. So therefore we go to the Q drops. When we go to the Q drops, we go to what says 8. There we go. We get the 8 there. He's telling us, hey, 17, pay attention. 8-year plan.
Coming in. At least 19 ships next year.
19 ships? We know what that means. We know who's the one that's controlling it. We got 19 ships, not the ones that are made out of crappy material. No. The ones that 19, meaning Trump, is the one that he's putting it all together. He's the one that's putting all the rebuilding the military, the Navy, the whole box and dice.
Including submarines, destroyers, assault ships, and more. Way up in the sky, there was no moon. It was dead dark. Couldn't see a thing. You couldn't see them. But they had, I guess, a beam going right into these chutes. Every single one of those bombs went right down those chutes into a granite mountain.
So basically, he's talking about how the laser, so they use what they call a laser system. I've got it right here. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see, I've got it here, guys. Just give me a quick second. So it's called, there we go. See, the other thing is what you got to remember, the 25 comms as well has got to do with, remember what they try to do is push the 25th Amendment and try to get rid of Trump. Remember that? Because what he's talking about there is, what did they do? Is they try to use the 25th Amendment. That's why we get 25 comms as well. But what's interesting is this little Q drop here. 4837. Never bring an arrow in a quiver, meaning that container, to a low LOSBR missile fight. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that right there. What is an LOSBR? It's basically what he's talking about. That laser beam that directs the missile to its target. So do you see what President Trump does? He gives us 25 comms as well, because he's got these entities, remember, Pelosi and all the rest of them try to get him out on the 25th Amendment. That's why we get also 25 comms as well. So he's talking about the LOSBR, the laser that directs the missile, okay, into its target. And then remember also, Nancy has been behind trying to basically assassinate President Trump. It's all going to come out. Why did she go to North Korea? You know, what business did she have going to North Korea? Yeah, that's all there as well. So what Q also says about is the mountain, Q drop 41. What you got to get, ladies and gentlemen, is President Trump is referring to future proofs past. So in other words, Q drop 41. What is the coincidence? The mountain that housed North Korea's nuclear weapons and testing collapsed. And then remember, I showed you also how the North Korean sub went in the guise of the Russian sub. Remember back in the day where they had that missile, try to hit Air Force One. Remember that? Well, what are we in right now? Red October. That North Korean sub went missing. Just like in Red October, that submarine went missing. Future proves past. So, when President Trump talks about the B-2s bombing Iran, it's another future proves past, ladies and gentlemen. We know that Iran, and I've shown you this many times in previous D-codes, that Iran has been under the control of President Trump for a long time now. And the reason why he talks about enrichment is actually talking about how they're enriching themselves, you know, as in the previous Iran deal, and had nothing to do with nukes. However, when President Trump is talking about now, he's referring to what happened in North Korea. And then Pelosi is tied to that as well. That's why you get the 25 comms, which they try to get rid of Trump using the 25th Amendment. And then we've got the LOSBR, which is referring to the missile, the laser, what President Trump's talking about, going down the chute and destroying the granite mountain in QDrop 41. What is the coincidence of the mountain that housed the North Korea's nuclear weapons? Because Iran had no nukes. Iran didn't have any intentions. What President Trump is referring to is future-proof's past. The mountain that they did destroy, ladies and gentlemen, was in North Korea. North Korea, nuclear weapons. Remember, North Korea was a black site for the CIA. They used the B-2 bombers to go out there and do the business. And they used LOSBRs to, he said, about the chutes. And they used the LOSBR, the lasers, to target and right down the chutes and to send those bombs. Unbelievable timing. I wonder if critically important materials as well as scientists, ACA the bomb markers, were inside when it happened. Shocking. No, global news agency suspects we had nothing to do with it. Enjoy the crumbs. Do you see, ladies and gentlemen, how much you get out of these comms? So basically, it's a future-proof past scenario again. Then you've seen how we tied into Red October again. And we are in Red October. How many coincidences before you call it mathematically impossible? Do you see what I mean? And it's basically President Trump is telling us, hey, have a listen to what he says. He said laser, and the LOSBR is basically a laser that directs the missiles to their targets. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear, President Trump. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Future proves past. There we go.
I think it's the last time they're going to build air chutes. They had these air chutes that were nice, beautiful. They were meant for us.
That were meant for us.
So they flew for 37 hours.
QDrop 37, ladies and gentlemen. 37 hours. They are true patriots. We will never forget. Let these coming days be remembered in our history as the time we fought to recapture the republic from those evil bad actors who for so long have sacrificed the good people of this land for their own personal gain. Fight the good fight, let justice be served. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting some amazing comms from our Commander-in-Chief. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear. Thank you very much, President Trump.
Total back and forth, 2,500.
Do you see? There we go. So we got the comms about the mountain. We got the comms about the laser, the LOSBR, right, which is what they use, as I said, as a way of getting the missile to their target, right? It's a targeting system. It's called beam riding, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's called. Beam riding. So beam riding is also known as the line of sight. That's what the LOSBR stands for. Beam riding. It is a technique to direct a missile to its target. The name refers to the way the missile flies down the guidance beam, which is aimed at the target. It is one of the simplest guidance systems widely used on an early missile system. There you go. I've always got the facts and some receipts at hand, ladies and gentlemen. I've always got them. And then when we talk about the LOSBR, we're talking about also Pelosi and her connections to North Korea. What was she doing there? Buying missiles? Buying God knows what? Never bring an arrow in a quiver to a LOSBR missile fight. Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is this. Future proofs past. North Korea, the mountain, LOSBR, down the chute it went, and it blew it all to hell, ladies and gentlemen. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear. Then you got 25, 525, 25 comms. 25 in this direction, 25 in that direction. Mirrors are important. 2,500. They want us to look at Q drop 25, but also it's referring to what did Pelosi? Do you notice the missile within the drop regarding the 25th Amendment? So you can see that the comms are all lining up, ladies and gentlemen. President Trump just spoke about the missiles going down the chutes using lasers. They are known as LOSBR. How they use beam riders to go and basically direct the missile down the chute. We know it was to bring down that mountain that were creating nukes in North Korea. No coincidence why we got missile there. And then LOSBR here, missile fight. And then we got 25th Amendment. There is no coincidences, none whatsoever. And we know that it's heading towards the end game. We can see it now with Comey. And it's just going to continue. Remember, Q drop 34. Q drop 34 clearly says the arrest of senior public officials. When it goes down, ladies and gentlemen, when it goes down, President Trump is basically, he's going to be the dictator. Remember, it's going to be 11.4 in the war manual, temporary military control. No, he never forgets, don't you worry.
Versus 525. We had 25 people.
There you go, 25 again. So he keeps saying 2,500, remove the zeros, 25. 525, 25 in one direction, 25 in the other. 25 again. So he wants us to pay attention, and you can see. Now, we also know, why does he keep giving us the 25 comms? We know what's coming our way, which is basically 11.3 marker once again. Proof to begin. What did we just speak about, ladies and gentlemen? Didn't we just speak about Pelosi? Right there. 25, 25th Amendment. Bang, one after the other, mirror after mirror, ladies and gentlemen. How many coincidences before you call it mathematically impossible? Q drop 25. Also, it's got Pelosi. Pelosi, 25th Amendment. Pelosi involved. 11.3. We all sincerely appreciate the work you do. Keep up the good fight. The flow of information is vital. God bless. How amazing is that? How amazing is that, ladies and gentlemen? It's phenomenal.
That said he never said that. 25. We had 25 affidavits, and we don't have an honest press. We have a really corrupt press.
So basically, we don't have an honest press. We have a corrupt press. Why does President Trump saying it? Remember, it's Q plus that's saying it. And what are we all waiting for, ladies and gentlemen? We're waiting for 11.3. I just showed you 25. Q drop 25. We kept saying 25. Why? 11.3. Where else is 11.3? Q. Oh, God, I don't know what happened, guys. I got knocked off. I must be on the target, as usual. I must be on the target. So, yeah, getting back to what I'm saying, let me just sort this out because I just got knocked off. Hold on. Oh, God. I must be on target. It must be on point, ladies and gentlemen. They don't want me bringing out this stuff. No, they don't want me bringing it out, do they? No, but that's okay. We're going to bring it out anyway. You know, do you see what I mean? Do you see when I'm on target, if you notice it all the time, bang. Always. Q drop 34, ladies and gentlemen. 11.3. Q drop 25. right? Q drop 25. 11.3. 11.3, Meriden Q drop 34. On POTUS's order, look at that. Because we go to Q drop 25, we keep getting the 25 comms. Brings us to 11.3. What is he talking about the media? Because on the bottom here, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has said about the corrupt media, didn't he? The corrupt and evil narrative that has been broadcasted by who? However, the atmosphere will be in the country will be divided as so many have fallen for the corrupt and evil narrative that has been broadcasted. Broadcasted by who, ladies and gentlemen? He's exposing the mainstream media. That's why we got the 25, 11.3, 11.3 over across the Q drop 34 as well. We have a corrupt press. We don't have an honest press. Corrupt. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Mirrors are important. Corrupt and evil narrative that has been broadcasted. Who's the one that broadcasted? The press. So you can see that the mirrors are important. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear. 11.3, Q drop 34. All right. Then you got the corrupt. There we go. He's mentioning the mainstream media. The mainstream media are set on a target, on a path of self-destruction, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. We fight through the corrupt press. That's true. You got to smash through it. He's got to smash through it. He's had to smash through the fake news. So you see what I mean? The mainstream media, statistically, no one trusts them anymore. Thanks to that man. We're under invasion from within. He's correct. Let's go to that, ladies and gentlemen. Very fundamental part of the D-code. President Trump knows what he's talking about. JFK, back in the day, ladies and gentlemen, he knew. This is JFK's speech when he addressed the American newspaper publishers. Now think about it. What did he just say before about talking about being infiltrated, an invasion from within? Who was he talking about? The corrupt mainstream media, known as the press. While JFK back in the day made an address. He said this: the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we as people inherently, historically opposed to secret society. What do you think Q has exposed over and over again, and our commander-in-chief been exposing these things, giving us comms about Freemasonry. Freemasons, ladies and gentlemen, are secret society. George H.W. Bush, even Prescott Bush, the Bush family have had their ties to Skull and Bones. We know Skull and Bones ain't good. To secret oaths and secret proceedings. JFK knew. It requires a change in outlook, a change in tactics, a change in the missions by the government, by the people, be every businessman or Labor leader, and by every newspaper. JFK knew. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on primarily on COVID means for expanding its sphere of influence on infiltration instead of invasion. That's JFK's words, ladies and gentlemen. On subversion instead of elections. George Soros, Q drop 4349. Nobody escapes this. George Soros's work, infiltration instead of invasion. Destroying America will be the culmination of my life's work. Q drop 3911. President Trump, do you see how the comms are crystal clear? How mirrors are important? Have you ever witnessed the media, Hollywood, the Democrat Party, full, foreign leaders, foreign media, etc., push so much hatred towards a sitting US president? Why are division tactics necessary? Coordinated, defined propaganda, infiltration instead of invasion. JFK said this. They will stop at nothing to regain power. Q. JFK said it. He said it right here on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections. While subversion instead of elections goes to Soros. There you go. Then you got intimidation instead of free choice. Intimidation? We know the intimidation tactics that have been used. On guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. Intimidation, Antifa. Instead of elections. Who was the one that was doing it all with Soros? Was basically using the illegal immigrants as pawns. Not just only in America, ladies and gentlemen. In Europe as well. That's why President Trump says, oh, you got a problem over there with your illegal immigrants. Now think about this. Guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system, well, think about the guerrillas, Antifa. It is a system which has conscripted vast human material resources into the building a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried. You don't know about the mistakes. They're buried, all right? One way or the other. As what do we say? Who knows where the bodies are buried? General Flynn does. Not headlined, its dissenters are silenced and not praised. This is JFK's words. No expenditure is questioned. No rumour is printed. No secret is revealed. He's talking also about the CIA. Remember, he wanted to get rid of the CIA. And President Trump is bringing it all. Do you see the comms? 5 of 5. Comms are crystal clear, President Trump. We know what you're getting at. Thank you very much. Let's continue. There you go. Because it's, remember, you got Obama. You got them all. And the infiltration instead of invasion. So he says they're not wearing a enemy uniform. No, they're in the guise of being a president. They're in the guise of being a senator. They're in the guise of being in the House. They're in the guise of all these things. But they're not wearing the enemy uniform, as he says. Infiltration instead of invasion. $11,488 murders. 11,488. When we add that number, ladies and gentlemen, 11 plus 4 plus 8 plus 8 gives us Q drop 31. Think about it. He's just telling you all these things. Infiltration instead of invasion. And remember also, foreign entities have been involved. Heads of state. Well, if we go to Q drop 31, it makes all the perfect sense. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to here.
A lot. You have to go on television a lot because you can't get a fair shake if you're going to rely on somebody else. They don't understand. They've destroyed The image of media now is at the lowest point it's ever been. While America is under invasion from within, we're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. These people don't have uniforms.
So there you go. So in other words, when there's infiltration instead of invasion, they're not wearing uniforms. As I said, they're in the guise of being the president, like Obama, Secretary of State, Hillary, Podesta, Pelosi, politicians, foreign heads of state, senators, congressmen, congresswomen. The deep state don't come in a uniform. He said, if you can see the uniform with the enemy, at least you can take them out. You know who they are. But they're not wearing a uniform. They've been infiltrating America from within, as JFK said.
But we are under invasion from within. We're stopping it very quickly.
There you go. We're stopping it very quickly. Think about it. Do you think it's a coincidence why we're seeing about Comey coming out now? How he's getting an arraignment? Then you think about it, Comey, Brennan, and then you go up the chain, right up to Podesta, 11.3. You can see it's all heading up. Hillary, and then checkmate, Obama. Obama's checkmate.
You know, we had 11,488 murders.
11,488. Now you hear he's been speaking about the enemy from within. We've identified who they are. JFK knew about it. He's bringing it up in the comms. 11,488. 11 plus 4 plus 8 plus 8 equals 31. Q drop 31 once again. World stalemate. Remember, infiltration instead of invasion. State leaders. Foreign heads of state. World stalemate. We all have the goods on everyone. That's part of the reason why. So you see how we got these comms consistently being shown and remanifested in calculations. We have the goods on everyone. That's part of the reason why some of these things tie back to foreign heads of state and will remain classified, not all. We are in one of the most critical times of our country. Trump and others are working to balance. We're doing well for America. Remember, this is the illusion as far as it's been shown to the masses. Why? Okay, yes, President Trump has always been there, always had control. But remember, contrast was necessary to win over the masses organically so that the common person can endorse President Trump and get behind him organically. Well, at the same time now, they're purifying the government. We know what this is all about, the shutdown. They're using this to purify, to get rid of all the crap, all the slush funds, all those characters, bad actors as well. There is so much string pulling and blackmailing that we need to cut these off truly to gain the power granted to us by the patriots and hardworking people of this great country. So just by that, ladies and gentlemen, we get to Q drop 31. 11 plus 4 plus 8 plus 8 equals 31. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear. Thank you very much, President Trump. We know what you mean. We know that you are bringing this right to the end. We are at the end game. The comms are consistent. What we need to do now, ladies and gentlemen, number one, attitude of gratitude. Number two, trust the US military, trust the commander-in-chief. Trust the chain of command. And you can see that everything that's been happening, future-proofs past, is coming out now. It's all coming out through the comms and through events. As I've said, the events determine where we are in the plan, not the date promises. You can see that the comms are crystal clear. Thank you very much, President Trump. We know you've got this. We know you've got this in your control.
We took out 1,700 career criminals, but we took out 1,700 and they took them out. There was no doubt who the boss was.
We know who the boss was. He took out 1,700. We know what that means. Remove the zeros. 17 mirrored. 17 plus 17, Q plus. He's the boss. He's the one that's taken them out. So we've got the 5 of 5, comms are clear. Number 1, 2 17s. 17 equals Q. 17 plus 17, 34. 17 plus 17, Q plus. Q plus Q, Q plus. 5 of 5, comms are clear. We know President Trump has got this. How amazing is that? The comms are coming in, and the career criminals he's referring to, ladies and gentlemen, are the ones that committed what? The good old coup d'etat, right? That's the career criminals, the ones that have been behind the scenes. Huge up 4012. No coincidences. America's coup d'etat. They're the career criminals and then some. 1,700. 17. Remove the zeros. We know what that means. Hey, pay attention. We're in control. I'm in control. We've got this. Career criminals. They're the career criminals. That's the ones he's referring to. The Washington, D.C. career criminals. Their career is in politics. Their career is in destroying America. And their career has been destroyed by President Trump. They're the career criminals. And he says, they're gone now. They're gone. Thank you very, very, very much, President Trump. We know that you've got this. And we know that you've been, what, ladies and gentlemen? Draining the swamp. And we know where that came from. With that book, 1996, Dr. Javier Bernard, yes, D's dad.
They did an unbelievable job. Then they started even cleaning.
There you go. They did an unbelievable job and they started cleaning. What does Q says? A clean house is necessary. And there you go. Yes, it's all making all the world of sense, isn't it?
But give us another 15, 16 days.
15, 16 days. Again, ladies and gentlemen, what happens when we add 15 plus 16? I've shown you. I just showed you before. When you add 11 plus 4 plus 8 plus 8 equals 31, right? Then you add 15 and 16 and you get 31 again. So that's what I'm saying. He wants us to pay attention. 5 of 5, comms are clear. We know that mirrors are important, President Trump. Once again, Q dropped 31. Can you see the consistent comms? We have the goods on everybody. 1,700, remove the 017, double 17, 34 Q plus Trump. 17, military intelligence. We know that the military got this. President Trump's in control. We know that we got the 11,488. Add 11 plus 4 plus 8 plus 8. 31 again. 15 plus 16. 31 again. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. You can see that the comms are crystal clear. We have the goods on everybody else. World stalemate. It's finished. It's finished, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, President Trump. It was perfect. Yes, we get it.
It's perfect. He becomes governor. He's got money. Not money that he made.
He's talking about Britska. He's basically corrupt. It's not money that he's made. Obviously, he's been cashed up.
Last week they had 11 people murdered, 44 people.
11 people murdered and 44 people shot. Let's do the mathematics. 11 plus 4 plus 4, ladies and gentlemen. What number does it give us? It gives us the beautiful number of Commander-in-Chief Trump, and we know it's 19. 5 of 5, comms are clear. Thank you very much, Commander-in-Chief Trump. We know that you've got this, and we know that you have got this in your control. Remember what he's doing right now is he's basically using the excuse. Remember, it's got to happen organically. They've got to put the military, National Guard in Chicago. How do you do that? Insurrection Act. You heard him say that. If they don't listen, Insurrection Act's coming out. Well, there you go. The comms are pretty much there.
People shot. The week before that, they had 5 people murdered, 28 people shot.
5 plus 2 plus 8, 15, ladies and gentlemen, 15. 5 plus 2 plus 8, 15, Q drop 15, 11.3 marker. And we all know what 11.3 means, military. We know that it means also Podesta's, the announcement of Podesta's arrest. There you go.
Your place is burning down.
So he's talking about Oregon, Portland. Remember the Summer of Love? Remember when that place was burning down? That's what he's saying. It's another future proves past. Remember when the place was burning down? We know what that means. Future proves past. And President Trump, remember what happened back in the day, the Summer of Love, the reporters, remember the reporters there in front of the place that was burning down behind them. And they were sitting there saying, no, they're not protesting. It's the Summer of Love. Really. He's never forgotten about that.
And so you look at some of the things where they took over parts of Seattle. They actually took over a big
Do you remember that? The block. Yeah, remember that? Yeah, what was it called? CHOP or something?
percentage of Seattle. Think of that. You remember that. That was.
Yeah, no, we remember President Trump. We certainly remember what happened that time, don't we? We know what happened. Yes, the Summer of Love.
They took over parts of Seattle. They actually took over a big percentage of Seattle. Think of that. You remember that. That was a while ago. You saw it in Washington. We had gangs of Tren de Aragua with 10, 12, 15.
Right. 10, 12, 15. 10, 12, 15. What does that mean? 10, 12, 15. Add the numbers up, ladies and gentlemen. 10, 12, 15, and you get Q drop 37. They are true patriots. We will never forget. Let these coming days be remembered. So you get these consistent comms. You're getting these consistent comms coming through, right? They are true patriots. We will never forget. Let these coming days be remembered in our history as the time we fought to recapture the republic from these evil, bad actors who for so long have sacrificed the good people of this land for their personal gain. Fight the good fight. Ladies and gentlemen, let justice be served. 11.3 again. Can you see how it all translates? Everything is all connecting up. One after the other, ladies and gentlemen. How many coincidences before you call it mathematically impossible? Do you see how it all connects up? 10 plus 12 plus 15 equals Q drop 37. No coincidence.
Kids, and these military guys walk up to them, and they treat them with disrespect, and they just got pounded. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Grover Cleveland, George Bush, and others all used the armed forces.
That's right. Insurrection, ladies and gentlemen. The Insurrection Act authorizes the president to deploy military forces in the United States to suppress rebellion or domestic violence. President Trump keeps bringing that on. And I'll tell you why. Number one, he's putting, like remember, a chess master. Does a chess master go and attack the king straight off? No. It's strategy. You need to have your pieces or your assets in place, as Q says. Once those assets are in place, then guess what? It's game on. He knows what he's doing.
Is to keep domestic order and peace. And paid off because a lot of these insurrectionists are paid by, whether it's Soros or...
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen. Good old Soros. We know what Soros is all about. We know that Soros has been running the show with Antifa. And the kicker is that the taxpayer been paying for it. Oh, yes. Nobody escapes this. You know, we get it, President Trump. We know why you mentioned Soros. And the other thing is, who is also connected to Soros? That's the very interesting one. Don't you know the man with a no name? Yes, that one right there. And the thing is, don't think it's left and right and left and all that garbage. No. They're all connected to the filth. All of them are. Anyone that thinks right, left, right, left. No, think again. We know that Pamela Bondi, why does he say, oh no, we're going to leave it to Pamela Bondi to look after them? Aren't we, Pamela? And Pamela's sweating bullets. I wonder why Pamela's sweating bullets, ladies and gentlemen. Why is Pamela sweating it? I wonder why. Is it because she's involved pretty much? Okay. And they're all connected. The illusion of the left and the right, designed to separate and control. Back to the good old days of Freemasonry again. The black and white checkerboard. Here we go. Pamela Bondi. She's currently the Attorney General. John McCain, US Senator John McCain was a war hero. Yeah, Mr. No Name. A public servant and great American. And you know President Trump has spoken out against him. When Marco Rubio spoke out against Trump and was sticking up for McCain. And so did good old head Seth as well. That's all factual as well. May my heart breaks and my prayers are with Cindy. That's John McCain and Pamela Bondi. Yeah, no, that's real. Then in the middle, ladies and gentlemen, that's real again. George Soros and John McCain. Together like brothers. Because the thing is, the left and the right is just an illusion. And as I said, it's the one in the middle that pulls the strings. Okay, they all serve the same beast, don't they? The left and the right wing belong to the birdie in the middle. And here's another example. There we go. That's John McCain's, his widow, Cindy McCain. And who happens to be there? Homer Aberdeen. And we know Homer's connected to Hillary and all that other debauchery. And she's also connected to Homer, the Harvard University Muslim alumni, that is also connected to Saudi Arabia. All right? The House of Saud. The very same place where they're all being groomed by Prince Al-Walid. Now, in the middle, ladies and gentlemen, we've got good old McCain's widow, Cindy McCain. And then there is Alex Soros, Daddy's favourite boy. Not very good, is it? No, but President Trump's exposing them all. So now do you get why Pamela is on a stumbling block? Why we haven't seen Soros in chains yet, ladies and gentlemen? Haven't you worked it out? President Trump, friends close, enemies closer. Everyone in this cabinet of his. Remember the 19 comms? Just like Rutherford Hayes was sworn in secrecy, as so was President Trump. As the 46, he's got his own little cabinet going on. No, don't you worry. And Pamela Bondi and all these others that are next to him, no, they've been set up for a huge fall straight into the shitter, ladies and gentlemen. That's where it's all heading.
For other people, but they're paid by the radical left.
They've been paid by the radical left, and so is Pamela. Oh, don't you worry, Pamela's a little spy at the Qatar. You know, don't think about the Qatari business being good. I've exposed that filth. You know what I mean? No, Qatar and all them. No, they're all part of the gang. Okay? And Pamela was paid off by Qatar. Now, there's a real document. Embassy of the State of Qatar. Now, you see how it all connects up? And then, remember, what did Julian Assange say? Or did we forget about that one? No, let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that Qatar in it, hook, line, and bloody sinker. No coincidence, none whatsoever, does not exist. All you've been living is a lie and illusions. There's Julian.
There's an early 2014 email from Hillary Clinton, so not so long after she left Secretary of State, to her campaign manager, John Podesta. that email, it states that ISIS, is funded by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the governments of Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Now, this is I think this is the most significant email in the whole collection. And perhaps because Saudi and Qatari money is spread all over the place, including into many media institutions.
Into media institutions. And that's why President Trump talks about them being corrupt as well. Because they're all involved, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, they're all involved. Pamela Bondi is in it very thick. And remember, he said about Qatar. Yes, Qatar. Saudi Arabia. And we know what ISIS really stands for. Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. The illusion, ladies and gentlemen. It's one big fat illusion. And then the illusion is this, that McCain, the right and the left and the right, remember that business? And then you got Pamela Bondi. She misses John McCain. Does she love, good old Clinton as well? Do you see how they're all in bed with each other? How it all connects up? It's about time that people started to wake up and stop praising good old Pamela Bondi. Stop praising all these cast of characters, because in the end, they're all being set up by the master genius, the master strategist, President Trump. That's what it is. Julian said it. You heard it. Not very good for Pamela, is it? No, not very good for him at all. And that's why I'm saying, do you see why Pamela is stumbling around the place? Stumbling around the place. Why, Pamela? Why, Pamela? Because you've been bought and sold off. You pretty much have. And you know that the shit is coming to an end. I've got all the documents. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. How much was she paid? There we go. US $115,000 per month. Who was she paid by? The Embassy of Qatar. The state. There we go. Remember Julian said? The government of Qatar. And this is the thing. Do you think for a moment that President Trump, this is what I'm saying, the Air Force One business, don't you find it quite odd? I know they're trying to gift President Trump a plane from Qatar. Are you serious right now? This is what I'm saying. This is the genius of this man. He's setting them all up for this huge major fall. That's what's coming their way. Don't you worry about that one.
We haven't had a crime in Washington in so long. Because we got the careers. We call them the careers.
We call them the careers. We call them the careers. We know why you call them the careers, President Trump. Because they all made a career out of basically destroying America. That's what they made a career of. And we know that Obama, and we know that Hillary, and we know that all of them have been involved in betraying America. Right there, look at that. 6 explosive uranium-1 facts. Clinton betrayed America. Obama's betrayed America. They're all betraying America. We know they made a career out of it, President Trump. 5 of 5 comms are clear.
We got these lunatics out. They're career criminals. I don't know. Maybe they were born that way.
Oh, that one right there. Oh, maybe they were born that way, ladies and gentlemen. When I heard that, I knew exactly where he was going. And let me show you exactly what he was meaning. In the Q drops, ladies and gentlemen, there's one drop in there that pretty much sums it up. What song says, I was born that way? They were born that way, ladies and gentlemen. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear. Q drop 4467. You can't call it a coincidence. 5 of 5, comms are clear. Pretty much President Trump has given us AQ proof. And you're seeing it here on the Freedom Channel broadcast with Master Decoder FCB. I'm showing you, ladies and gentlemen, that President Trump has given us the clear comms. I've got the God bumps. They were born that way, ladies and gentlemen. These lunatics, I don't know, but they were maybe born that way. There we go. Lady Boy Gaga.
Takes out. They're career criminals who, I don't know, maybe they were born that way.
They were born that way. Bang! Smashed it. There you go. Q drop 4467. Career criminals. He's referring to Jimmy Carter, Obama, George H.W. Bush, George Bush, and Bill Clinton. They're career criminals. They were born that way. Mirrors are important, ladies and gentlemen. 5 of 5 comms are crystal clear. Symbolism will be their downfall. They are fighting to regain control, to stand in their way. You awake is their greatest fear. Q. Do you see, ladies and gentlemen? Here you go. Here's a Q proof. You heard it from Master Decoder FCB. You see how I pay attention to the greatest detail. How important it is. They were born this way. He speaks in comms. There is your proof. Undeniable facts, evidence, and receipts. There are no coincidences, none whatsoever.
Some people don't like me to say that, but maybe they were.
There you go. Some people don't like me to say that, but they were born this way. Do you see? This is the genius. Oh, these career criminals right there. 5 of 5. Comms are clear, President Trump. We know that you're in control. We know that is AQ proof. There you go. And the mirror, ladies and gentlemen, is this right there. Right there. Born this way. It sings it. There's your mirror. That's in the Q drops. Career criminals, that's in the Q drops as well. Let's continue.
Certainly, some were. But we had COVID come up and we had to take care of that. We did a great job with COVID.
We did a great job with COVID. People don't realize that the military were the only way. The only way, ladies and gentlemen. They were basically, as I said, President Trump spoke about Regeneron. He spoke about HCQ. He spoke about, and he took it. He did it by design. And he had to play the game. Remember, they had to see where the bioweapon was coming from. We know what great job means.
We had the...
Now, think about this. Right now, what he's saying is we did a great job. He doesn't speak about the vaccines here, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't speak about the vaccines at all. He speaks about the therapeutics. He doesn't speak about the bioweapon. He speaks about the therapeutics. He speaks about the Regeneron. Have a listen.
Therapeutics, it's just Regeneron, so many things we did for COVID.
So many things we did for COVID, but he did not mention the vaccine, the poison.
We had to focus on that, and every other country in the world was being decimated by COVID.
Every country in the world was being decimated. Remember, they used these lockdowns for a reason. Q says 80% needs to be done in the dark. 80%. They're not going to conduct operations while people are roaming around the streets. That's a fact.
So we had to change gear a little bit to take care of that. He took out ISIS. I was told it was going to take 4 years. It took 4 weeks.
ISIS, ladies and gentlemen. He took out ISIS. Now think about that, ISIS. Who's the one that created it? Obama. We know that. Obama was the master that was like behind it. Now, he said 4 years, but it took 4 weeks. Put those two numbers together, ladies and gentlemen. And who was the 44th president? Who was the one? There's the mirrors right there. He's talking about ISIS. We know what ISIS is all about. We know Obama's involved. We know John McCain was involved. But Obama was the one he keeps blaming. So 44, ladies and gentlemen, right there is your number. 44.
That he took out ISIS. I was told it was going to take 4 years. It took 4 weeks.
Do you see? 4. He's given us the clear comms. We know President Trump, who did ISIS? It was Obama. Straight after that, he talks about ISIS, and then he might as well put an equal sign straight after it and put 44. 4 years, 4 weeks, 4. We know who's involved. 5 of 5, comms are crystal clear. Thank you very much, President Trump. We know who's been involved. And we know, at the end of the day, who is the king in the arrangement of checkmate.
And I was told by military people it was going to take 4 to 5 years.
It was going to take 4 to 5 years. So think about this, ISIS. Right, let me write it down for you, guys. It's going to make the world of sense. So we've got ISIS. Who was the creator? 44 equals Obama. Who was the one who was going to take 4 to 5 years? 4 to 5. Look at that. ISIS equals 44. Remember he said 4 years, 4 months it took. 44. Obama. Then he said it was going to take 4 to 5. In other words, it was going to take 45, meaning Trump to handle the situation. 5 of 5, comms are crystal clear. Thank you very much, President Trump. We know it was Obama that created ISIS, and we needed you to take care of business. Now do you see, ladies and gentlemen, how President Trump speaks in comms? And we know that President Trump is in control.
To do it. So one thing with Obama, I had zero.
There you go. With the one thing with Obama, I have zero respect. So he made that line. ISIS, have a think about it. Do you see how it all connects up? Right? How it all connects up. So you got ISIS, 4 years, 4 months, 44 equals Obama. It took 4 to 5. They said it was going to take 4 to 5 years. Remove that, equals 45, Trump. But then, ladies and gentlemen, he's talking about Obama again. How he's got zero respect. That word zero, I hear it over and over again. What is President Trump alluding to? Where are we in right now, ladies and gentlemen? What does zero mean in Red October? Make your depth 50 and at zero bubble. Zero bubble. Meaning, ladies and gentlemen, periscope depth before the attack. He's going and setting the assets in place. Preparing. Remember, Chicago, no coincidence. That was Obama's territory, remember? Chicago? Yes. No coincidence why he's sending the military over there. Remember, Chicago. Interesting. And you see the interesting state of affairs, ladies and gentlemen? The things that are happening. It's all making the world of sense, isn't it? That's what I'm saying. Do you see? It's all making the world of sense. Now, where is, let me see if I can find it. Yes, that abomination. Where is that abomination? Okay. Give me a quick moment, guys, while I'm looking for this. Oh, yes. That abomination happens to be in Chicago. Yes, you've forgotten about that. Obama's library. How coincidental that Obama's library, think about this, it's a genius. Genius of this man is nothing short but genius. So you've got Obama's library over in Chicago. They're sitting over the military assets, right? Think about this. They're sitting over the military assets. In the Q drops, ladies and gentlemen, it does mention about it. Oh, yes, it does. About good old Obama's library. And it's also future proves past. Right? That's what it's all about. Now, let's have a look at this. Q drop 341. Documents from Obama administration have been transferred to the Barack Obama Presidential Library. You may send your request to the Obama Library. However, you should be aware that under Presidential Records Act, the President records remain closed to the public for 5 years. Very interesting. 5 years. And after an administration has left the office, so basically after he's left his office, 5 years, right, we know basically what's going on. Look at this, rated, so basically rated by the good guys per Trump. Right there, ladies and gentlemen, shockingly quiet, no leaks. Presidential libraries are put in place to retain control over self-incriminating classified documents. Now it all makes the world of sense. In other words, these presidential libraries are a scam. Basically, it's a way of being able to contain self-incriminating classified documents in a safe place. And guess who's paying for it? The taxpayer. But guess what? As Q says, they have it all. What is the difference regarding Hussein's presidential library? Who controls it? We know who controls it. President Trump controls it. Oh no, do you see, ladies and gentlemen, you know that library, that looks like it's a disgusting mess, right? That's all been done. We're all laughing about it, President Trump, don't you worry. We're all laughing about it. We're laughing all the way home. Do you see what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? We know what's going on. I have zero respect. Yes, we know what zero means. You're zero in your Red October bubble. It's coming up. Don't you worry. It's all coming up. We all know that we're in Red October right now. The hunt is on. The hunters become the hunted. Who was the one hunting Trump? Obama and the gang. Everything's flipped in the other direction, ladies and gentlemen. President Trump says, I've got the genius device. Oh, yes, you heard about that. That's running silent. We know what that means. We know that obviously he's getting ready to take them down. And starting off is good old Comey. How amazing is that? Mark your death. He's been giving us a lot of 50 comms lately. You've heard it. 50-50. Zero bubble. Periscope depth before attack. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Make your depth 50, zero bubble. Periscope depth. To look at and observe what's going on. Break the surface of the... So basically the periscope goes up on the water. They see what's going on and check their fixes fire control solutions. They get ready on enemy combatants before they start to attack those combatants. They're getting ready, ladies and gentlemen, and it's no coincidence that he's setting the military, the National Guard, over to Chicago. It's all going to make the world of sense to the masses, because guess what? What is over there in Chicago? Yes, good old Obama's library. And we know what's going on. Can you see, ladies and gentlemen, how amazing it is? Oh, yes, it's really amazing, isn't it? Really amazing. I have zero respect. Yeah, in other words, zero bubble, getting ready to go after checkmate. We are on the end game, ladies and gentlemen. And you see how Q has said, that's what I'm saying, you can't call it a coincidence that the Obama library was raided by the good guys per POTUS. So this has all taken place. We're going to be celebrating very soon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be celebrating. And we know that these presidential libraries were basically done by design at the taxpayers' expense. It was a scam so they can retain control over their self-incriminating classified documents. I wonder what's in Billy Boy's one, eh? Good old Billy Clinton. I wonder what juicy stuff's in there and all the rest of the gang. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that one. Do you see, ladies and gentlemen, zero bubble, getting ready for the attack? Chicago, no, we've got to save Chicago. Remember that one? We've got to save Chicago. We know why. It's all to do with good old Barack Hussein Obama.
Respect for him as a president, but he would bop down those stairs. I've never seen. Pop, pop, pop. But he did a lousy job as president. Over, and I met with NATO, and NATO raised from 2 to 5, which everyone said
2 to 5, and he says NATO 2 to 5 straight after that. Why does he say that, ladies and gentlemen? Remember, all roads lead to Obama. What is on Q drop 25 again, ladies and gentlemen? What is waiting on Q drop 25? See you later, Podesta. Q drop 25 again. Do you see how it's all going up, all done strategically, all done by design? We're heading on the end game, ladies and gentlemen. We're up. We're going towards Comey, the arraignment. Then you got all the others going up the chain. 11.3, ladies and gentlemen, 11.3. And we know where this is all heading towards. Yes, Q drop 34. There we go. On POTUS's order, we have initiated certain file safes that safeguard the public from the primary fallout, which is slated to occur 11.3 upon the arrest announcement of Mr. Podesta. Actionable 11.4 war manual, temporary military control, more capture of more senior public officials. It's all coming, ladies and gentlemen. You can see it's all connecting up.
they didn't pay the 2% because they know we were there to pay it. And now they paid the 5%.
There you go. So we've got 25 comms. So 5 of 5 comms are clear, President Trump. We know where you're going with this. We know we're heading towards the end game. Mirrors are important. We've got the 25 mirror comms. We know you're in control. We know we're heading towards the 11.3 marker. We've been given plenty of warning, right? It's coming. It's coming.
That's trillions of dollars. And Biden gave $350 billion.
$350 billion. Biden gave $350 billion. Okay. Where do we go from there? Q dropped 35. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. POTUS is well insulated and protected on Air Force One and abroad. So when this all goes down, he's going to be protected. Okay? And we know that the military are involved. Let us salute and pray for the brave men and the women of uniform who will be under this to take this assignment. This is an assignment to bring forth peace, unity, and return power to the people, back to us. Remember when President Trump said, I'm giving back the power from DC back to the people. all of us. It's our hope that this message reaches enough people to make a meaningful impact. We cannot yet telegraph the messages through the normal means. For reasons I'm sure everyone here can understand, follow the questions from the previous threads and remain calm. The primary targets are within DC and remain at the top. So you can see it's all heading towards the end game. It's on the left and the right, on both sides. Remember, I just shown you, they're all in bed with each other. The spillover in the streets will be shut down quickly. There will be more false flags. Stay alert and vigilant, and above all, pray. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is a mirror. The reason why we get quote from scripture is this: numbers. Remember, how many coincidences before we call it mathematically impossible? This little, for God so loved the world, has got to do with John 3:16. John 3:16. 3 plus 16, 19 equals Trump. So that scripture comes from John 3:16. Add these numbers, you get 19, which equals Trump. Have a look at this. 4, 10, 20. 4 equals D, 10 equals J, 20 equals T, DJT. Add those numbers up, you get 34. 34, Q plus. Mirrors are important. So we've got a mirror right there, upon a mirror, and upon another mirror. So you got 5 of 5, comms are crystal clear. You know this is definitely coming directly from Q plus. You see how it all works, ladies and gentlemen, how scripture is there. People just think, oh, isn't that lovely? No, it's mathematics. How many coincidences before you call it mathematically impossible? Do you see, ladies and gentlemen, how it all adds up? That we're heading towards the end game. That things are on both sides of the coin. After all, both sides are corrupt. The spillover in the streets will be shut down quickly. Then you got this business. How many coincidences can you call this before you call this mathematically impossible? How many coincidences? We're not going to have interruptions. There are people that are rude and they don't need to be here. They don't need to ruin our buzz. They're here to sow discord, but they get kicked out. They try to rattle the cages, ladies and gentlemen, and they realize that it doesn't work. And they'll try and do it over and over and over again. Because you know what? They don't want you knowing the truth, these entities, like this idiot in their chat before. This idiot wants to distract you from what's going on. And there are so many of these idiots that are so small-minded. No, that's all right, Carol. He deserved what he got. And it's not the first time that he got it. And it's not going to be the last one. And this is the thing. I mean, they go there and they cause they try to sow discord, ladies and gentlemen. You know why? Because they don't want you to feel empowered. I'm an empowerer. I empower people with the facts, evidence, and receipts. I empower people with the truth. And these people here are the weak-minded influencers that go around trying to influence people with their garbage. No. Out you go. We are at the end game now. We are on point, and we're not going to be distracted by these fools. You know what I mean? That's the reality. And as I said, we're not going to have that garbage. And anyone that has the disrespect to come here and cause disruption is out of here. No. It's the same deal with, remember, we're trying to bring out about the realness, Sarah. And then we get these people because they are trying to distract us. They're trying to rattle our cages and it's not working. Sorry. If you want to continue with that, yeah, that's right, Carol. Fuck around and find out what happens. you won't last long. And you're not worthy of being here either. Sorry, I consider you, anyone that comes here to cause these kind of issues, failed help. And failed help gets shown the door.
It's not sustainable. $350 billion. And we have a war that should have never started. But we're not doing that anymore. So I just want you to know we're selling equipment. So I don't want to say we're making money because I don't want to be making money on a war.
So basically what President Trump is speaking about there is about war being a scam. In the past, ladies and gentlemen, Q drop 489, they've been using various methods. Remember, let's break it down. President Trump has said, under Biden, we paid $350 billion. Remember, creating the contrast. But that's not just under Biden. It's been prior to Biden. It's been prior to all of them. I mean, Obama's done it, all of them. And the US taxpayer has been paying for it all. We know that the Paris Accord, that's why President Trump went in and spoke against the Green New Scam, the Paris Accord. It's a slush fund. The Red Cross has been complaining that they're not receiving any money anymore. Then you got the foreign aid, which is all the business, the US aid, that stuff that they use Doge to get rid of. And now he's saying we're not making money. Sorry, we're making money. But I don't want to say that we are making money. Do you see what I mean? Because before, he's giving you the contrast. Before, the US taxpayer was paying for it all. He's saying now we're making money, but I don't want to say I'm making money on the war. So war is a scam. Trillions and trillions of dollars. And then it says here, slush funds are everywhere. Think George Soros. So basically, it's basically future-proof's past, but it's also showing, hey, we're no longer participating in this. The US taxpayer ain't paying to fund the Ukraine war. NATO is. They're paying us. He's making it a point. So we go to the Q drops and it gives validity to what he's saying. Then when we go there, we see who's the one that has been paying Antifa, the taxpayer, through the slush funds. George Soros pays Antifa, not out of his own pocket. No. In fact, I've heard that there are, shall we say, those that are owed money by Soros that are doing all that naughty stuff, these organizations that are suing Soros because they haven't paid him. How funny is that? Now, we know what you mean, President Trump. 5 of 5 comes a crystal clear.
There's too many people dying. They're losing 7,000 soldiers a week. Russia and Ukraine are losing 7,000 souls.
7,007. Very interesting number, that one. 7,000. Let's see, there's anything in Q drop 7? Let's see, ladies and gentlemen. But in the meantime, how about a thumbs up? Great comments. Let's share this all around the place. Where we go one, we go all. We're all in this together, except the clown jobs. All right? Sorry, we don't want the clown jobs here. Okay, this is what it means. It makes perfect sense. We're talking about war. We're talking about losses. Why wasn't Hillary, this is what I'm saying, do you see what I mean? This all makes perfect sense. Why wasn't Hillary, Rod and Clinton prosecuted for the emails? That was done by design. Because we're talking about the game of chess here. Number one, she's the queen. And what does Q says in that drop? Let's bring that one up as well. In the game of chess, do you take down the queen at the start? Do you take down the king at the start? No, you don't. You don't do that. Let's go in the Q drops. It'll explain it. Objective, end, checkmate, king. We know in the arrangement Obama is the king. We know in this arrangement that Hillary is the queen. Do you attack and remove the queen mid to end? So before you go after the king in chess, you got to go after the queen. But you got to remove these cast of characters too. What it's like, have a look at it from this. perspective. You got the low levelers, which are the pawns, bishops, rooks, those caster characters. You got Comey. You got Podesta. You got them all there over this. Then the Queen, ladies and gentlemen. Now do you get it? So basically, why didn't they prosecute Hillary over the emails? That was done by design. It had to be left to the very end, just before they took down Obama. Put simply, Obama ultimately okayed by using the non-government email ADDI to communicate with Clinton. Obama also had an alias along with each of the cabinet members, right? So they're all involved. You can liken their cabinet members to being basically the rooks, the bishops and all them, the knights. Therefore, indicting Hillary, listen to this, would lead to indicting Obama. You got the Queen and King. You can't take him down to the very end. 8 years, ladies and gentlemen. 8 years. And his cabinet, which could never have happened. Remember, he lied about knowing, but that ultimately came out in the dump. Poof. There you go. Do you see what I mean? How the drops, President Trump, 7. Do you see how it all comes back to that? How it all makes perfect sense? How it all connects up?
And I go around bragging about that. I said, we have the strongest military anywhere in the world. I say it. You never heard Biden say that.
No, because Biden was never around. And he's going to tell you that.
Never heard him say anything.
There you go. I've never heard him say that. And I've never heard him say anything. There's your statement right there. I was the 45th, 46th, 47. Then he says, I go around bragging about my military. Biden never said that. In fact, I never heard him say anything. The genius of this man. And this is the thing, right in front of your face. I don't get it. People just write it off. How do they write it off? And then the auto pen was another thing too, yeah.
During the war, we went 14 for 14. We had 14, this is where they ran, we had 14 missiles.
14 for 14. Ladies and gentlemen, Q dropped 14. George Washington crossing the Delaware. Very fundamental moment. Just before it happened, it was just before New Year's. Just before the New Year. In fact, it was around Christmas. Future proves past. President Trump says, I belong to the party of common sense. George Washington. He keeps talking about George Washington. George Washington didn't belong to a party. But then the Constitution goes back to that thing about Thomas Paine. Common sense. Future proves past, ladies and gentlemen. Can you see where this is going? This is amazing. Future proves past. Could this go right to the wire? Right to the wire. SCIF. A SCIF is a secure location where they basically can discuss highly classified information. But what's interesting, ladies and gentlemen, is what's on the kill box. Inside the kill box is the F. That's been done by design. Military intelligence. What is state secret and how is that upheld in SCOTUS? State secret privilege is basically upheld in SCOTUS. It's anything that's detrimental to do with state secrets, like, detrimental to national security, that George W. Bush used state secret privilege to hide a lot of things about 9/11. Military intelligence is Q. That exists. What must be completed to engage military intelligence over 3-letter agencies. What must occur to allow for civilian trials? Okay, in other words, to be trialed under the military. Okay, because we are currently under military occupation. You do realize that. And President Trump has the powers under the Constitution to do that. What is Flynn's background? His background, ladies and gentlemen, is military intelligence. Why do you think the kill box has marked the F? F, ladies and gentlemen, means Flynn. Why you got F and then underneath military intelligence? Because Flynn, that's what he specializes in, ladies and gentlemen, is military intelligence. That is his background. Fact. Why is this relevant? Very important, because Flynn knows where the bodies. He knows everything. And so did Admiral Rogers of the NSA. No such agency. Met Trump privately without authority. Remember, they went to Trump Towers. They gave Trump the lowdown as to what's going on. Does POTUS know where the bodies are buried? Flynn knows it. Does POTUS have the good on most bad actors? Because military intelligence, Flynn, Rogers, NSA, they have the goods on them all. Was Trump asked to run for president? Yes, he was. By who? The military. Who was next in line? Hillary Rodham Clinton. Was the election supposed to be rigged? Yes, it was. Did good people prevent the rigging? Yes, they did. Why did POTUS form a panel to investigate? Has POTUS ever made a statement that proven as true did not become proven as true or fact? No, he hasn't. What is POTUS in control of? The military commander-in-chief. What is the one organization that isn't corrupt? The military. Why does the military play such an important role? Because basically they serve the commander-in-chief. And they are sworn to uphold the Constitution. Why is POTUS surrounded by highly respected generals? Commander-in-chief. Who guards former presidents? The United States Secret Service. Why is this relevant? Because, I'll tell you why. Because who guarded Hillary Rodham Clinton? That was done by design. The United States Secret Service, these people don't realize that the United States Secret Service was guarding Hillary Rodham Clinton, and at the same time, whatever blah, blah, blah was going on, they were relaying it to Trump. Why is this relevant? That's why President Trump he knew what was going on. They knew what was going on. Why is Antifa allowed to operate? We know why. Okay? They are agitators. Why hasn't the Muslim Brotherhood been classified as a terrorist organization? Yeah, why? Because remember, the Muslim Brotherhood connected to the Harvard University Muslim alumni that were connected also to the House of Sword. Oh, don't you worry, Muslim Brotherhood are also connected to the State of Israel. They're all connected over there. What happens if Soros-funded operations get violent and engage domestic terrorism? Insurrection Act. Authorizes the president to deploy military forces inside the United States to suppress rebellion or domestic violence. There you go. What happens if mayors, police, commissioners, chiefs do not enforce law? Military. Military are the only way. What authority does POTUS have specifically over the Marines? Well, he's the commander-in-chief. He controls them. It's in Section 2, Article 2 of the Constitution that he can use the military, the National Guard, and to go and kick ass. Why is this important? We know why it's important, because the rest of the The rest of them are all corrupt. Mueller's background in military basically was Trump asked to run for president without assurance, with assurances made to prevent tampering. Yes. President Trump made it very clear, if I'm going to do this, I've got to have reassurances and that they're not going to tamper or muck around and rig the election. How is POTUS always 5 steps ahead? Who is helping POTUS? Well, the United States Secret Service, remember, they were protecting Obama. They were protecting Hillary. They were protecting him, remember? And they were giving him all the information. You get where I'm going with this? President Trump has got 5 steps ahead also because General Michael Flynn, Admiral Rogers. The only way, ladies and gentlemen, has been the military. It has been the only way. So 5 of 5, your comms are crystal clear, Commander-in-Chief Trump. We get it. We totally get it. We know that you're in control. We know this has all been done by design. Okay? And this whole plan is nothing short than genius. The Q plan. Future is proving past. Events are determining where we are in the plan. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, that we are heading towards the end game. The indicators are there. James Comey, remember, going after Hillary Clinton would mean you'd have to go after Obama. That's why they didn't do it from the beginning. And do I believe Assange is going to come somewhere in the mix? Yes, somewhere. Somewhere things are going to come out. Assange is going to be involved. After all, Seth Rich. Then the people organically are going to demand that they lock him up. See, it's about gaining the trust of the people, avoiding civil war at every cost. That's why the plan has been necessary. 8 years, ladies and gentlemen. 8 years. This is an unseen war that we've been fighting, but necessary. A necessary battle of real good versus evil. Real good versus evil. Not the illusion of World War I and World War II, where the actual corrupt cabal were creating the villains and the heroes, the Axis and the Allies, control, playing us like a bunch of idiots, using us, as Q says, as a bunch of pawns for their entertainment. No. Those times are finished. So hopefully you enjoyed part 1 of the great military decode here on the Decoder's Den. Tune in again, ladies and gentlemen, as I reveal part 2. I want to say thank you to Carol and Soren. They're awesome. Thank you for keeping the chat on check. Thank you to all of you for your unwavering support. And until next time, God bless you all and take care. Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Go on, take the money and run. 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 I want to ease the money. Maybe this one time. Maybe
we're going to get into Jassar and Nassar, but even Charlie Ward said when
they slide through shadows, whisper thin, with twisted smiles and plastic skin. They reel you in with poison words, promising diamonds, selling dirt. Their eyes are hollow, reflections lost, built on deceit, no matter the cost. They play the fool, they play the friend, but you're just another means to an end. Grifters and con men lurking in the night, masters of darkness hiding in plain sight. They'll take your soul and leave you bare. Grifters and con men, they don't care. Get up! Get up! Hands reaching cold as steel. Trade your truth for a crooked deal. They'll make you laugh, make you trust, till everything precious turns to rust. They wear your secrets like a crown, smiling wide as they track you down. 1,000 lies, a practiced grin. They steal your heart, then they slip right in. Grifters and con men spinning their lies, a silver tongue, the devil's disguise. They'll leave you empty, no place to stand. Grifters and con men, blood on their hands. They haunt the alleys, the backroom bars, cashing in dreams, leaving scars. No remorse, no second thought, just the thrill of what they've caught. Grifters and con men, masters of sin, with hollowed hearts and empty grins. They'll strip your soul and leave it bare. Grifters and con men, they don't care. In every city, in every town, they weave their webs, they wear their crowns. Forever drifting shadows on the run. Grifters and con men, never done.